Well, hello and welcome. This is Ken D. Foster, and I'm the executive producer of the Upshift Summit. I am so happy you're here. This may be the most important conversations that you've listened to up to this point in your life. I know that sounds like a bold statement, but truly, we're in a place in this world right now where there's a lot of challenges. We all know that. Everything from environmental issues with our weather to our oceans, pollution, to homelessness, to wars. There's distribution of wealth that needs to change on this planet if we're to survive. And we have AI coming in, artificial intelligence, and there's just a lot going on. So I want you to be assured, just as I was assured after listening to many of the speakers that you're going to listen to, that we have solutions. And those solutions are going to be delivered to you in a summit that I'm so proud to produce and to deliver to you. Dr. Ervin Laszlo is the catalyst for this summit, as most of you know. Dr. Laszlo has been my hero. I've learned from him. I've grown for him over the last several months that we've worked together. And I'm happy that you get to learn and grow from him also. I wanted to give you some of the insights that I believe that you will walk away with this summit. So first and foremost, you get to learn from the exclusive knowledge from Dr. Ervin Laszlo. You get to listen to him on how to elevate your consciousness and catalyze personal and societal change. He takes a holistic approach, and all the speakers do the same. You're going to learn strategies to tackle complex global issues like climate change, inequality, and be able to adopt holistic systems approach to really make the changes not only in your personal life, but in your family life and your community. You're also going to be able to discover the tools to align your life purpose with global evolution, fostering personal transformation and a deeper connection to the world at large. You're going to be able to engage with insights from a diverse range of visionary speakers, providing perspectives on how to create positive and lasting impact. And you're going to get takeaways, actionable steps to implement in your daily routine, helping you to contribute to the collective upshift in consciousness in society. In other words, you, like myself, get to be even more a greater catalyst to be the solution for change in this world. So if that's excitement to you, then here's what I hope you'll do. I hope you will pass on this summit to those that you care about and love. Number one. Number two, take notes. This isn't just about getting more information. This is about realization, helping you to realize the principles that are being taught by all the speakers. And the only way we can do that, really, is take good notes and then apply the principles in our lives on a consistent daily basis. You're going to be learning things that I believe just as you listen to the speakers, you'll be getting downloads from them into your own DNA and shifting your consciousness just as you listen to them. I know that's happened for me, so I'm pretty sure that's going to happen for you too. So we have an amazing lineup this first series. I want to tell you who's going to be on today. First of all, we have Dr. Deepak Chopra. He'll be speaking. Dr. Michael Beckwith and Sister Jenna have an amazing conversation that you're going to want to listen to. Alberto Villoldo. He is one that has explored the realms of consciousness in ways that I'm pretty sure a lot of you haven't. He's going to be giving his insights and wisdom. We also have Howard Martin from Heart Math, and we have Gary Zukav, the famous Gary Zukav. Well, all of our speakers are famous, and so many of you know them. That's why you're here in the summit. So I can just tell you this: it's going to be moving, it's going to be inspirational, it's going to be transformational. So enjoy, sit back. Like I said, please pass it on to your friends and family. And here we go with our first day and our first speaker. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ervin Laszlo's Upshift Summit. Truly an amazing and wonderful event. And we are so happy to have you with us. And this is just an amazing journey that we get to share together. And hopefully not just during the summit, but long after. I would like to ask Ervin Laszlo to come onto the stage and welcome you all to the summit. So, Ervin, please come onto the stage.
Nora, thank you for these nice opening words. It is my pleasure and privilege to open a summit named after me because I have initiated, supplied an idea for it, the impetus, but it's being carried forward by my friends and is being multiplied the world over. That is our purpose. Why Upshift Summit? What is Upshift and why a summit? Upshift means that we are moving forward on the path of evolution, a constant path in the universe and on Earth. It is a path that leads us closer and closer to the ideal state of coherence, where all things are in contact and communication with all other things, and all can flourish together. This is the wholeness that the mystical traditions have always been talking about. This is the evolutionary destiny of humankind. But it is not guaranteed that we reach that destiny, that we can accomplish it. We have to be here, we have to be wise, prepare for it, welcome it. This summit is intended to bring together some of the keenest, most insightful minds on the contemporary scene to address this question. How can we guide the processes of evolution so that they lead to thriving and not to breakdown? This is in our power, but we need the best minds to consult, because this is a mindset change. This is a total system level change which is introduced and can be carried through only by a total change of our thinking, of our feeling, of our perceptions. This is the task before us. Why? Because the world is untenable. The human world is not sustainable. We know that. We know the climate change. We know the exhaustion of resources. We need the problems of politics and of society. All this adds together to an unsustainable condition. So the question is not whether we change, but how we change. For that, we need to consult the brightest, most insightful minds of our time. And this is what we decided to do. In the next few days, now you will find opportunities to witness conversations, informal, spontaneous conversations by some of the most insightful people that is available on the contemporary scene. They have responded to our invitation, and together we'll have a consultation that is spontaneous, that is deep, and I believe it is unique on the contemporary scene. So welcome again to these consultations, the Upshift Summit. It is a summit. We need the highest, the best minds, the best ideas. And it is an upshift because it is leading us. It is meant to lead us, to guide us toward achieving a higher level of evolution, where we are all can work together, where we all collaborate. And together with nature and the universe, we strive and reach the next level of coherence, which is our evolutionary destiny. Reaching it in practice. This is our task. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for responding to this call. And we'll all look forward in the next few days to insight, informal, quite unprogrammed changes. Quite unprogrammed conversations spontaneously coming from the heart, from heart to heart. Thank you for being with us. And we look forward to this, spending 2 days or 3 days with you in your company to guide the human evolution toward a bright new phase in its work. Thank you again.
Today's exceptional guest is Dr. Deepak Chopra, founder of the Chopra Foundation, a nonprofit entity for research on well-being and humanitarianism, as well as Chopra Global, a modern-day health company at the intersection of science and spirituality. He's a world-renowned pioneer in integrative medicine and personal transformation, and a clinical professor of family medicine and public health at the University of California, San Diego. Deepak serves as a senior scientist with Gallup Organization and is the author of over 89 books translated into over 43 languages, including numerous New York Times bestsellers. His 90th book, national bestseller, Metahuman, Unleashing Your Infinite Potential, unlocks the secrets to moving beyond our present limitations to access a field of infinite possibilities. Time magazine describes Dr. Chopra as one of the top 100 heroes and icons of the century. Quite the legacy, so I want to welcome this metahuman to our conversation about well-being because, frankly, Deepak, I never met a human I didn't like.
Deepak, welcome to this podcast. We go back, I don't know how many years, but I have never treasured a friendship more than that is with you. I consider you one of the wisest people on earth. I want to ask this wisest person on earth a very fundamental question. I have a sense, it's an intuitive sense, and I want to ask if you share this or not. This sense is that somehow we have bottomed out, that somehow that what we are facing is now, and among the alternatives, a positive place, a positive way forward. That what is beginning to happen is that the human spirit is beginning to awaken. As I try to facilitate a movement toward what I call the upshift, shifted toward an evolutionary higher level of sustainability and thriving, as I talk about that, I feel a resonance. Somehow more and more people join. I have more and more people say, yes, this is something we want to get involved with, and something that we feel too. Somehow we are on the cusp. And what is forward, what is ahead of us, is a next leap in evolution. Perhaps too optimistic, too thought out. I don't think so. Deep down, I think that we have got now to the dawn of a new age, as this podcast series calls it. We are someplace where we can open the way forward like never before. This is just to add this one thought. Never before in the history of humanity and the planet have a conscious humanity faced an alternative like the present, an alternative of choosing its destiny, choosing it consciously. This is the first time this opportunity arises. And somehow I feel that we are meeting it. I'm not usually that optimistic, but I somehow feel that we are on the right path. We are moving forward. Deepak, what is your intuitive sense as well as scientific rational sense? Where are we in this historic turning point? Which way are we going forward?
Thank you for having me in this podcast, Ervin. I treasure our friendship, also my friendship with Fred, whom I've known intermittently for many years. And thank you, Alison, for also introducing me and inviting me to this conversation. So, Ervin, when people ask, are you hopeful? My answer is hope is a sign of despair. We don't need hope unless there is despair. So, we have to be independent of both hope and despair. Same thing for optimism. There is a pessimistic way to look at what it is, and we should go through it in an optimistic way. But I would like to get away from these ideas of pessimism and optimism to what is reality. And if we embrace reality as we are beginning to evolve to that understanding of reality, then we don't need optimism. We don't need hope. What we need is what our essential nature is, which is creativity. And creativity, of course, also includes imagination. And even that is not enough. We need creativity, and we need imagination, and we need an emergence through an ecosystem or matrix of what you might call love. Love not as a mere sentiment or emotion, but as the ultimate truth at the heart of creation, which is subject and object of experience are one. Seer and scenery are one. Lover and beloved are one. Knower and known are one. Now, no, we've heard this many times. Sometimes very profound truths become cliches, and then people forget how profound they are. So we've heard, reality is one. We've heard reality is infinite and formless. We've heard that whatever we call reality modifies itself into both perceptual activity, which we call the physical world, and the physical body, which is a human construct, because there's no such thing as a physical world. It's a human interpretation for human perceptual activity that we call matter. Nobody has ever proved the existence of a substance called matter. And, if you look at whatever we call matter, ultimately disappears into formless, infinite, non-matter. The essential stuff of the universe is actually non-stuff, and it seems to be intelligent non-stuff. So there's an organizing principle, there's an evolutionary principle, the formless reality that is differentiating into species-specific observers, species-specific modes of observation, and species-specific things observed, is infinite and incomprehensible. Even to use words like inside or outside, these are very convenient fictions, because in this formless reality, there's nothing inside or outside. It is modifying itself as this experience that we're having right now. And as we shift our identity to this formless reality, we do realize that ultimate reality is a field of infinite possibilities. It is unpredictable because it is creative. It is the source of attention and intention. It's self-organizing. It's self-regulating. And the only thing that we can do wrong is to interfere with it. So the whole idea that I am doing something, that I have causal agency, is what is causing problems. The subject-object split, the naive realism that says that we are physical objects in a physical universe, and that the world exists as perceived by humans, even if humans are not there, is actually a very ridiculous idea. So science itself is demolishing its own precepts. Right now, science is based on subject-object split. It's based on the assumption that there is something called matter. And it's also based on the assumption that atoms and molecules and force fields somehow create the experience that we call consciousness, insight, intuition, imagination, creativity. Transcendence is the dance of molecules. Nothing could be more ridiculous. So I just want to conclude my answer by saying we are at a crossroads. We continue the road we've traveled for the last 40,000 years since the cognitive revolution. Tribal minds, modern capacities, nuclear weapons, climate change, mass migration, social injustice, economic injustice, eco-destruction, and weapons of mass destruction and mechanized death, then we are sleepwalking to extinction. And that's a possibility. We are at that crossroads. The other possibility is to embrace what you're saying, is to understand that all we need for this emergence is shared vision, emotional and spiritual connection with each other and caring for each other, and then complementing the genius that we have in the modern world with all the understanding. But science itself has to take that quantum leap beyond naive realism and understand that what we call the physical universe is our collective manifestation, collective dreamscape, and what we call our body minds are, at the moment, fictional characters in this collective dreamscape. If we transcend these modes of thinking that we've had since primitive times with these modern capacities, then I see what you have as a vision, a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. But this is a moment of choice for collective humanity. You cannot depend on special interest groups, nor can you depend on leaders, world leaders. Most of them are gangsters and murderers. And you can't even depend right now on industry, the industrial complex. So you need a grassroots movement of shift. And that quantum leap has to be what you are suggesting right now. I'm sorry for a very long answer, but that's a summary of where I think we are.
Deepak, we think exactly like, my biggest project right now, going to put all my energy in inspiration, whatever insights I had, is called the Upshift movement, where people can join to facilitate that direction, which is in an evolutionary sense, which brings us to a higher level of integration with freedom, with consciousness. This is not an indifferent universe. This is what I'm saying. It doesn't go by itself completely. There are elements in it which move it in one direction or another. And my question, my intuition, at the same time as I want to share with you, that somehow compared to what it was 6 months ago, year ago, or many years, or several years ago, there is a positive element, a positive motivation, something emerging, which is not entirely indifferent, not casual. It is emerging because it's part of the universe. It's an evolutionary imperative. It's you either join together and create a whole system which has its integrity, has its unity in its diversity, and is capable of cooperation, or that system and its environment are going to break apart. That's why we need that new thinking, that new vision that you're both talking about. Everything you say about the new sciences is exactly what I've been thinking about, been writing about. It's perfect. I want to add, I have this sense, not a predetermined sense, but a sense of possibility, enhanced probability, let's say, a possibility which is not neutral, that we are moving forward in, and all of a sudden now, let's see, all of a sudden, I mean in the last few months perhaps already, moving in a direction which promises, which tells us that yes, the future is much more opening up for us, a positive, constructive future than we had thought. That we are part of a goal-directed evolutionary system, and we're beginning to realize it and joining it. And that joining means exercising what you and I and many people around us call love. We can become loving beings, and that way, by feeling the love imperative, the love impetus in the world, we can be agents of a better world coming to us. I have that sense. It's not a usual optimism. It's a sense of optimism. It's a sense of possibility. I'm a possibilist, a potentialist, if you say. We have the potential to move forward. We need to facilitate it. And you and I and people around us on this podcast series, we are committed to facilitate that positive evolutionary option, which is the greatest promise, the greatest light at the end of the tunnel that we find now in this day and age.
In a sense, we're acting like midwives, and I'd like to hear a midwife response from Fred about this dynamic of helping to facilitate, to birth what Ervin and Deepak have been talking about. Your thoughts?
Yes. We are the midwife of the field. We do participate in the creation. With our belief and thoughts, we create always our future. If we look at the history, our future is always in our head. And we are the representative, otherwise called doing God's work, or we are the agent of the universe. Now, we already predicted a long time ago that this era is going to come, the second exile era. We don't know exactly when. We know that in many of the traditions, it says 2,500 years after Buddha is gone, this is going to come. Major awakening. In fact, Buddha even wrote a Dharma for this people 2,500 years to study. It was predicted. Why? If you think about energy, it's just clustering together to give a perception of form, because we have receptors, and so we perceive it as a form. As Deepak said earlier, it is just perceptions. It doesn't exist. So the clustering of energy to give the perception of matter and form. And so as we move, we actually participate. If you think about energy, it's always rotating like yin and yang. And therefore we see history keep repeating itself. Everything is duality of yin and yang because it's energy. And if you don't have intervention to the energy, you can actually predict the energy where it's going. Unless, of course, human being awakens and participate more and more in shifting the energy, and therefore you have a little bit of impact. But we think that we have a lot of impact. Sorry, we're just an agent. And so this awakening is well protected. The Mayan calendar predicted. The energy of Earth is increasing. The speed is increasing. So being on Earth, we observe the same thing. Our energy is not separable from the universe energy. And that's why there's astrology, right? And so, yes, I totally agree. We are agent. We participate somewhat. And to the Chinese is, hey, we have to live in accordance to the Tao. Why? We don't create anything. The evolution energy is creating it through us. So we think that we're doing anything. We are wrong. We don't. We are just the vehicle, the agent. We're just like a handful. It looks like there's a lot of information in a handful, but actually without Wi-Fi, and we have nothing on the cloud, you have nothing in a handful. It's like watching the TV. It's not the TV, it's a broadcasting station. But we thought the TV is it. You see, I press the button, something comes out. It has nothing to do with the TV. We're just a vehicle for the broadcasting station. And everything is changing. Why? Because it's always oscillating. In the dualistic world, it appears this way. But as Deepak said correctly, knowing and not knowing, existent, non-existent. The duality does not exist in the holistic world of no substance. So the whole key thing is changing the way we perceive, and every action of ours will be different. Thank you.
Beautiful. I want to ask you something, Deepak, because this is all related. You know how when somebody is drowning, they're flailing in the water, and in a sense, this is sort of what the dynamic is on Earth right now in this global identity crisis, or all the convulsions that we're going through as we're birthing whatever is coming next. So actually, I'm going to give a different metaphor of a dance class, because it's almost like this world is doing 10 million different dances. One part of the world is doing a ballet, another is doing jazz, another is doing rap, another is doing cha-cha. Each individual rhythm is wonderful in and of itself, but we're not coordinated. So we're afraid, I think, of allowing to be led, and we're all trying to be the partner that's leading, when it comes to energy. That's just my perception. So I want to ask you, because I know that you made a quote that everything is merely a perception, individual exploration of one's conscious, purpose-driven footpath. Yet, with so much human diversity and so much fear right now operative in the world, how to, first of all, interpret well-being and reach an agreed upon meaning for person and planet in order to breathe easier and birth this dawn of an era of well-being collectively. Is this kind of chaotic energy just going to happen in spite of us and mayhem evolves? Or is there a way to do this with a modicum of grace?
So the short answer to your question is the only definition of well-being is self-realization, not self-improvement, but self-realization, and a critical mass of that self-realization, which Ervin and Fred both referred to as the awakening. So awakening is getting rid or going beyond the divided mind. Now, in order to do that, we have to also understand a few very basic principles. And those principles are that, number one, differentiation is not separation. So, when a human baby is conceived, you have 25,000 genes, and they kind of, for lack of a better word, let's call that 25,000 packet of genes a fertilized ovum, which is pluripotential. It has many possibilities. And it divides about 50 times to create the 30, 40, 50 trillion cells that make a human baby. All it needs is 50 replications. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, etc. And in the end, you have a human body mind, which has more cells than all the stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Now, when you look at this baby, or you look at any biological organism, you say, well, that's the eyes, that's the nose, that's the liver, that's the brain, those are hair follicles, that's genitalia. And we now think these are separate items in a human body. But in fact, they're differentiated activities of that wholeness, that self-organizing principle that's inherent in the formless, infinite, irreducible, mysterious, incomprehensible, unimaginable reality that we can call whatever we want, the unified field, God, Allah, Ein Sof, Brahman. It doesn't matter, those are words. But whatever that infinite mystery is, it is intellectually, scientifically, philosophically incomprehensible. To pretend even that we can scientifically understand that mystery is huge arrogance. We are now told by science that there are 2 trillion galaxies, that there are 700 sextillion stars, that there might be uncountable trillions of planets, in maybe 60 billion habitable planets in just the Milky Way galaxy. And so in this entire scheme of things, planet Earth is not even a speck of or a grain of sand in all the beaches of the universe. And on that grain of sand is a species called Homo sapiens, self-described as the wise ones, is going to save the universe. It's the height of hubris and arrogance. So when we begin to understand 2-3 principles, only 2-3 principles really. One is diversity, and differentiation is actually manifestation. So maximum diversity, shared vision, which I mentioned earlier, emotional and spiritual bonding, complementing each other's strengths with that shared vision and that emotional and spiritual connection that we call love, but with maximum diversity. When I say maximum diversity, it means diversity of people in the field of entertainment, songwriters, poets, movie makers, entertainers, people from the educational field, from academia, the grassroots, maximum diversity of gender, LGBT, all the marginalized communities, maximum diversity of race, when you bring maximum diversity, which is the nature of the infinite to differentiate into maximum diversity, you also bring maximum creativity. So creativity, love, diversity, shared vision, emotional bonding. Those are the ingredients for the movement that Fred and Ervin are predicting, and that has been said before. We're not really saying it for the first time. We're recycling some of the greatest luminaries that have existed, whether it's the Buddha or Rumi or Jesus. It doesn't matter. Some of the greatest luminaries have said this in the past. But now we have technology. We're sitting, I'm in New York, Fred is in Singapore, and Ervin is in Europe, and we're having a conversation, and we're reaching hopefully millions of people. This is a neural network that's evolving. Now we call it the internet, but it's a neural network, a new connectome that is evolving. And no one in the past, not Jesus, not Muhammad, not Rumi, not the Buddha, had this privilege of extending their little microphone into a global arena where, if what we are saying makes sense, and there is in fact the possibility of rewiring the entire planet's brain through what we call the internet, and even as we speak right now, the technologies that are evolving, and we can't take credit for the evolution of these technologies, because the technologies themselves are part of the evolutionary impulse of the universe. Unfortunately, the technologies are both divine and diabolical. So when you have creativity and the divided mind, you get nuclear weapons. When you have creativity and the whole mind, you get a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. So this technology, I feel, as it extends into what we call the metaverse, into new things, even though they're going through turbulence, cryptocurrency, democratization of the privilege for freedom, the idea of shared values, the fact that technology will soon move into blockchain, decentralized voting systems, the ability to track everything to its source, the blockchain technology, the cryptocurrencies, the new metaverse that will evolve into immersive, intelligent ecosystems where we are actually immersed in the reality that we are projecting and expanding our perceptual activity beyond even normal human. Normal perceptual activity is a very narrow band of electromagnetic activity that we translate into our perceptual experience that we call everyday reality. But, that is very species specific. I've now met people who can access the reality of other species, of plants, of insects, of other sentient beings. We are part of a matrix of intelligence that is so incomprehensible. No philosophy, no science will take us there. So I go back to traditions like the Buddha's tradition, because I'm part of that Eastern culture, but also go back to the Vedanta, which, has some amazing insights. The Yoga Vaishishta, a text from thousands of years ago, says infinite universes come and go. In the vast expanse of consciousness, they're like motes of dust dancing in a beam of light. And those infinite universes exist in consciousness alone. So in these wisdom traditions, they outline certain principles. And we don't have the luxury of time right now to go through all these principles. I just want to mention the first and the last, the bookends. Okay. And this is from Vedanta and the yogic system. The first principle, which is the first yama, which means principle of social interaction. The first principle is ahimsa. Ahimsa means love and non-violence, not by what you say, not by what you do, but your presence of being. So that's the first, your You are the embodiment of love and presence and peace in the same way as light from a bonfire or light from the sun, focused on none, denied to none, but just radiating that presence of love. That's the first bookend. And the last bookend, and there are many in between that we don't have time to go to, the last is surrender to the divine, incomprehensible, irreducible, formless, infinite, wondrous mystery that we are. If we do that and we understand that differentiation is not separation, that diversity is, in fact, the advantage to our collective creativity at the moment, then we have a solution.
Wow.
What you said,
Yeah.
Buck,
Ervin, yes.
I think important element is to realize that it's not the question of understanding a consciousness that is held by the universe. That consciousness is not a subject-predicate attribute. It's not that there is the universe and then it has consciousness. That consciousness is the universe. That we are part of a conscious universe, a psychophysical universe. Not in a dualistic sense, but in an integrated sense. That incomprehensible whole about which Deepak is talking is an expression of consciousness. And that we human beings are capable of glimpsing some element of that, glimpsing at least that there is this consciousness in the world, and that it is higher than anything else around us, and that we are part of it, and we can be a conscious midwife of its development. That is surely not a usual factor, at least on this part of the universe, this solar system. It's an unusual privilege, not by chance that we are here. We are here, I think, to be conscious elements of the consciousness, which is the universe, translating that consciousness into well-being, if we grasp it, if we recognize it right. For that, we need a new mindset. With that, we need the old mindset, what Deepak is talking about, rediscovered and re-embraced. Then we can together move forward and create the kind of world that we were meant to create, because this is not an indifferent universe, not a chance universe. It is here to move toward higher and higher levels of evolution, diversity, but also integration, choice among the many elements that make available ever more paths opening for us. And we are at a cusp, we are at a moment when recognition is dawning on us, and it's making us conscious architects, conscious agents, as Fred is talking about it as well, conscious agents of this evolutionary trend. So we are at a fascinating moment in human history. Nothing like this has happened. A conscious species recognizing the multiple paths that are becoming available to it. Facilitators, agents, you've got to be conscious agents, conscious facilitators. Then the great, undescribable, incomprehensible whole that Deepak is talking about will be translated in us through our intuition, not through our rational mind, but through our intuition, will be translated into action so that we can all physically live and thrive together on this planet.
Beautifully said. So let me ask you something, Fred, because Deepak was talking essentially about radiating a loving energy and surrender. He also had mentioned, among others, Rumi. And I want to ask you something, Fred, relating to our dark, if you will, our dark nature, which continually asserts itself throughout the ages, yet we keep condemning and suppressing it, which just reinforces it as it festers and either explodes into more violence and tolerance that we're seeing right now, or implodes as in disease. Rumi has a quote, and I'll tell you this: that which haunts us will always find a way out. The wound will not heal unless given witness. The shadow that follows us is the way in. So when birthing this new era of well-being, should we first, we're talking about grand and vital concepts, but we've got to also bring them down into a kind of bite-sized piece that various people around the world can digest. And there is so much fear right now. So when birthing this new era of well-being, should we first perhaps lily pad towards love by removing the stigma of disliking something or disagreeing with someone, and first learn to do that safely and respectfully? Is that a lily pad towards love, or is there no such thing? And then I'd like to hear Deepak's feelings. Fred is reflecting.
No, I'm trying to find a little arrow to open up my mute.
A real world issue. Okay.
Well, we evolve in the direction of perceived challenge. You think about your life, isn't it true? And then why is it a challenge, right? So, the meaning in the dualistic world, when there's light, there's shadow. It's always there. But there's no light, no shadow. It's our perception of light and shadow. So when we look at our shadow, we'll find the light, and vice versa. But, there is no such thing, the dark side. It's just an appearance in a dualistic world. They always happen. There's light, there must be shadow. And so when we think, oh, this is our dark side, there's a perception. So earlier I heard the thing about nonviolent. It just clicked my mind. What is nonviolent communication? Don't be judgmental. And what is judgmental? The minute you have duality, you have like and dislike. So you take out the duality and judgment, now your perception is subject-object unity. And so first, when we say, okay, where am I going to find light? You're going to see the shadow, and you know where the light is casted. You know the sun is that direction, right? But that too is not real. It's still a dualistic thinking of looking at things. And in effect, would there be light if there is no darkness? And so it's true. But you think about today is very interesting, right? So we know we're in the information era. Now we are going to have digital information, DNA information, and all information. We truly move in the information era. The funny thing about projection, we can actually see ourselves. We are a projection. We are a projection, the holographic reality. And this holographic reality of the conscious create another holographic reality, a metaverse, that we can experience reality before we create what we say, when we create the reality physically, which is also a holographic reality. Now, wouldn't it be easier? Now, we're just hearing about the future of metaverse, that you can actually do digital twins that actually can have bioelectrical structure like yourself. You can actually subscribe a medicine and give it to your digital twin and see the result before you actually take the medicine in your body. So they're doing all kinds of things with metaverse. It's not a game thing only. So look at this. We project in this holographic reality to create another holographic reality so we can see the holographic reality. Now, isn't it easier to wake up to understand what holographic reality is, where we can jump into that one and experience and live there? So this is indeed a very interesting era for awakening. And everything indicated we're moving there. Right? So I just finished a new book, which is on this topic about the vision, a new economy that the United Nations said, well, we need a new paradigm, a new economic paradigm of well-being and happiness. We need to have that to move from GDP to GHP. Now, GHP is not outside. GHP is inside. So the 10 happiness report is jogging on the same spot. You cannot find GHP outside. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fred. So let me, off the heels of that, let me pose this to all of you, whoever would like to respond. Suffering has been a hallmark of the human condition, the human condition, and even spiritual awakening with dark nights of the soul that can make or break us. The feeling of vulnerability can cause us to erect walls of protection or remove barriers to the awareness of a loving presence. So, with the world in upheaval, homesteads being challenged by environmental collapse, jobs being replaced by AI, all the vulnerability that this implies, is creativity, and I think, Deepak, you were referring to this early on, is creativity our new salvation, if you will, our new skill set for not only surviving but inviting well-being? Is awakening via suffering becoming old paradigm, and awakening by finding one's creative passion, imagination, and self-expression new paradigm? Who would like to start?
Short answer is yes, new paradigm. But creativity and love and surrender to the infinite all go together. Creativity without love is totally meaningless and dangerous and diabolical. So we need both of that. Now, while I was listening to Fred, here's what the thought came to me. Nothing that we attribute as a property of the physical world actually exists in the physical world. So if I ask you, where's the color red? There's no color red in the physical world, and even as I perceive this color red, it's colorless photons that are appearing in my consciousness as the color red. So there's no color in the real world. A color only exists in consciousness. And without color, there's no shape. And without shape, there's no form. Similarly, there's no sound in the real world. There's no flavor in the real world. There's no scent in the real world. There's no image in the real world. There's no thought in the real world. There's no insight in the real world, or what we call the real world, the physical world, the creative world. The whole thing is assembled non-locally, and yet we have this extraordinary experience that we are having, a local experience. And that is a trick of the senses, as Fred said. And our sensory perception is always delivering magical lies. So, they're magical in that everything appears that it's true. The earth seems flat, but we know it's spinning at dizzying speeds, hurtling through space at thousands of miles an hour. And it's not flat. Things appear solid. We know they're proportionately as void as intergalactic space. So everything that you perceive, everything that you can think, everything that you can imagine, everything that you can conceptualize is a lie. And that includes, by the way, quantum particles. We say, oh, that's a Higgs boson. We gave a name to a space-time event in consciousness in a very complicated experiment that cost billions of dollars. We excluded every activity in the universe. We saw a blip in the Hadron Collider, and by the time we saw it, it didn't exist. And we say, oh, that's Higgs boson. It creates mass in the universe. It's as good as saying, that the whole universe came from this one particle that we have now observed, when by the time we observed it, it didn't even exist. The whole scientific paradigm, which is very useful for creating technology, but is now getting to the point where it says, there is no such thing as a world. There is no such thing as a universe. There's no such thing as even a body. There is only the infinite modifying itself into a multiplicity of infinite modes of knowing that are also not only species-specific, but culture-specific within human beings. So, there will never be an agreement on what is reality as we interpret it through our five senses, because we were all conditioned differently. So what we call light and shadow, up and down, pleasure and pain, all these things are created by us in order that we can know ourselves as that. I can know myself as that. What I call an object is an experience, whether it's a book or my telephone. It's an experience. And as an experience, it's a modulation of perceptual activity interpreted by human beings as this iPhone. But actually, it's me in disguise. So when I see myself in an object, whether it's a coffee cup or a phone, that's beauty. When I see myself in another living being, that's love. And love and beauty are truths. And we have to go beyond our normal concepts, including the shadow self and all of this, to see in that wholeness of experience, everything is me in disguise. And that me is not a person. Even what I call the other is me in a different uniform. So, Meister Eckhart, the eye with which I see God is the same eye that God sees me with. Or even a simple injunction that nobody understands, love your enemy as yourself. Well, because your enemy is yourself in another variety, in another mutation, in another expression. For that, at some point, even our philosophies don't work. We have to just be still. As Ruby said, know that God's language is silence and everything else is poor translation. So, we have to settle into that being that transcends all differentiation, and suddenly there's glory. The glory is joy, truth, goodness, beauty, harmony, love, compassion, empathy, equanimity, and freedom from the constructs of birth and death, which are based on false identity. So you talked about suffering, and Fred will be an expert in the Four Noble Truths and the causes of suffering as outlined in Buddhism. But that's similar in Vedanta. They say the 5 causes of suffering, called the kleshas, not knowing who you really are, confusing yourself with your selfie, grasping and clinging at experience which can't be held on to because every experience is transient, ephemeral, ungraspable, recoiling from the same experiences, identifying with your ego, and fear of death. But in that true identity that we really are, these things disappear. They're like phantoms that we created as a result of confusing differentiation with separation.
I saw what looked like a divine light emanating from down up on your face. I'm sorry that we're not doing a video podcast instead of audio, but was that the real deal, Deepak, or was that the iPhone?
I think I was messing with the iPhone, trying to shut it off, but it wouldn't.
So look at that. It still looks like divine light, and I'm sure it is embedded in that.
Why not capture it on video anyway?
Indeed. I think we're coming to the end of this program, and I just want to ask each of you if you have a final thought or comment that you'd like to make or a question.
I like to go back the 2 comments our colleagues made. One is the final comment about one is coherency, and the other is Deepak saying that love, creativity, and surrender is not separable. It's the same thing. So when you're whole, it's not separable. Only thing is you commit what the Chinese yellow emperor canon say, all our sickness is because we're ignorant. If they were just like Socrates, who says, know thyself. The only thing I know is I know nothing. So in the Chinese culture, if you have that, at least you will be careful and not to get sick. But this wholeness is love. Love is, you're not separate, how can not be love? But it's not the love you see in Hollywood. And creativity doesn't come from you. It comes from the source. It comes from the cosmos. So if you don't surrender your calling by them and insist to use your ignorant desire to drive things, none of them exist. And that is a coherency, well-being, oneness that Ervin was talking about. I mean, it touches me that these comes together as little as language can explain. I think we have an energetic dialogue today here of understanding each other.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Fred, thank you. Deepak, any final thoughts?
Just to reinforce what Fred said, with a quote from Rumi, he said, exchange your cleverness for bewilderment. And I think bewilderment is a holy experience. And when we have that holy experience, we are holy ourselves, we are whole, and we are healed. And what creativity is a new story, a new context, a new meaning, new relationship, is really a death and a resurrection. So we need that death of the old story, and we need the virgin birth of the new story.
Oh, here's to that. Ervin, final thoughts.
I think we have said most of it. I think it's dealing with a great mystery in which we participate. It's not outside of us, it's in us. If we want to give up to our mission of conscious beings, we have to wake up to know that the answer is in us, and that the problems of this world have arisen because we have ignored them. We have just tried to do everything we could in short-term benefits. Now it's time to get back, to recognize that we are children of the universe. We are part of that wholeness that Deepak is talking about, that Fred is talking about, and do our best to be a constructive part. So as indestructible, indefinable events in this universe, we could continue, exist in this universe, to persist and to help other indescribable elements to persist with us.
Wow. Thank you to Dr. Laszlo and to our speakers for everything that you're giving us. Every time I listen to these, I'm inspired. I'm uplifted. I bet you are too. So I have a question for you. Is there anything in your composition, your disposition, that seems to ruffle you and put you in a state of upset or anxiety or stress? What is that? Is there something in your environment that's doing that? Something outside of yourself, a person, place, or thing that seems to be outside of yourself that's creating this disruption or disharmony in you? Well, over the years, I know that I've learned myself that it's actually all an inside job. When your attitude is right, when you're feeling powerful inside of yourself, there's really no person, place, or thing that can impact us, but we have to get to that place. And part of this is what our speakers are talking about, because they're talking about upshifting our consciousness. And when you raise your energy, you raise your vibration to that next level, then what happens is you're able to go through life, no matter all the chaos that's happening around you, you have an inner peace inside of you. So I want you to just think about that. And this week or this next few hours even, think about what you could do to upshift your consciousness to step into that place where really nothing upsets you, nothing bothers you. Why is that important? Because it's at that level that you can start tapping into the Akashic record, the superconscious mind, the universal mind. You can call it whatever you want, the mind of God. You can start tuning into that, and you start to live your life and always in remembrance of that. And your life gets better and better. Okay, right? You heard it from me. I hope you enjoy. Yeah, listen, we're ready for our next speakers. So they're all queued up. Let's go ahead and listen to the next conversation.
Welcome to It Matters That It Matters, the Upshift conversation with Ervin Laszlo and friends. I am Jennifer Cahill. We are so grateful to have you here today for another conversation between friends on how we can upshift the planet. I'm going to invite in my dear friend here, Ervin Laszlo, who is the creator of this incredible idea, the book, The Upshift. He is the 2-time Nobel Peace Prize nominee and has done so much good in the world, and this is just one more example of it. So, Ervin, thank you for convening us all today together and bringing us here.
Jennifer, thank you for getting us together and introducing the show.
It's my pleasure, my friend. Well, speaking of friends, we have two other esteemed friends with us who I'd love to bring on today and then open up this conversation, as this is a dialogue between friends, and we encourage this dialogue and this conversation to not only be here with us, but to actually be with each and every one of us as we go out into the world. This is an opportunity for us to come together. So let me go ahead and bring on our other friends here. We have with us today Sister Jenna, who I'm going to add here. So we have Sister Jenna with us here today, who is an incredible, wonderful woman from the Braha Kumaras, has been doing great work in the world and created the America Meditating Radio Show. And of course, we have Reverend Michael Beckwith, who is an incredible human being, Reverend at Agape, a non-denominational spiritual center out of Los Angeles that I've been honored and privileged to get to attend many times myself throughout the years. And so thank you all for being here with us today.
My joy. Thank you for the invitation.
It's my
Om Shanti. Om Shanti.
Well, Ervin, over to you, my friend. What is the burning question on your mind about how we can all upshift the planet?
The burning question is, can we make it? And I think we can. But we have to discuss how we do that. What is the meaning of the era in which we live? This is an era, hopefully, but I think it truthfully, it's an era of upshift. Moving from a set of crises now, moving beyond it, to somewhere which is not decided yet, but it is still in our hands to decide. Upshift conversations. What is the upshift? What can we do about it? Is there a deeper meaning to it? And who are we to decide whether it's going to be a good upshift or fail? I have the great pleasure to invite a set of eminent people, guests. We start here with two marvelous persons who are great intellects, a great spiritual person, a great feeling as well as seeing, thinking, and knowing persons. As you have introduced them already, and you certainly introduce them more in peace and quiet. We have with us Sister Jenna and Michael Beckwith. Let me ask this first question. You are people known for your insight. We are entering a new era. What should we know about this? What can we know about this? But above all, what can we do about it as individuals to make this an upshift to a better world? I'm convinced that we can, but how and what? Let me ask my eminent guest to start off this show. What is an upshift in your view, and what can we do about making it a good one?
Michael, I know you're going to throw it to me. I just know you're going to do that. Hi, everyone. I think I'll go ahead because I know when my sweet brother Michael starts speaking, you're going to forget everything I said.
Not true, my friend. I love what you say. Everybody is wrapped with attention just at the sound of your
Anyway, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And what an important question now. You know, in one way, brother and sister, it's just I feel that the upshift is happening through our inner silence. I think there's something calling us deep within the soul that is giving us permission to see the thoughts that are really tucked deep in our subconscious. And then we're given an opportunity to decide which one we want to feed. I think we're in the confluence age, you know. In my teachings of the Brahma Kumaris, the era that we're in is the age of the confluence between Kali Yuga, the Iron Age, and Satyuga, the Golden Age. And it's all predetermined. I'm aware of it. It's all predetermined, and it's all happening as it's supposed to. But the fact that I'm somehow, I don't know what I did, Mr. Laszlo, I just don't know what I did, but somehow I ended up in the confluence age of being awakened. And I remembered when I first got awakened, I was really in a completely different paradigm. And I wouldn't say I was in any kind of an upshift. But I remember that when it happened and my 3 eyes got clear, these 2 were there. They were sometimes not clear, by the way. But this eye became super clear. And the way that this eye started to see through these eyes, I started to see an upshift. And I'm still living that reality today. So I think there's a call that's happening. I think Michael would speak to that because we have a little bit of a similar stories back in the day. But there's a call, and there's a saying by this famous Jamaican singer, Bob Marley. Many are called and few are chosen. Look at that. And I think many of us are being called right now. But the question is, are we choosing that call? Would you say that, Michael?
Absolutely. Thank you for the great introduction to this conversation. Absolutely, there is a sacred calling on our soul. I like to say that there's an eternal broadcast that's happening. And the source of all creation is a broadcast throughout all creation. And that broadcast is, let there be life, let there be light, let there be beauty, let there be intelligence. And it's everywhere. And so, Ervin, when you ask us, during this particular time in human history where the systemic issues are intense, and you're asking, will we make it? I feel, as well as you feel, Ervin, that we will make it. I feel that there are individuals on the planet that are asleep. There are individuals on the planet that are saying things like, we have to go back to the good old days or go back somewhere in order to reclaim some values to go forward. And that, I think, is a high level of ignorance, that basically we have to go forward, that we have to evolve, we have to unfold, we have to embrace and surrender to the next stage of our unfolding that's within all of us. So it's not about going backwards, it's about a quantum leap, a leap into the next paradigm, the next level of awareness without a ladder. And that goes to what Sister Jenna is saying, that there's an inner reckoning, there's a calling, there's a sacred silence within us. And that as we expand our dominion over our attention and hold fast to that calling, then we will evolve as a species. So it's not about just changing the external world. It's about us evolving as a species. Then the external world does change because everything is vibration. And then our thoughts, our words, and our actions change. And we can make a big difference on the planet in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And so I think...
I think it goes to what you're saying, Michael. You remember that thing they used to have at bookstores? It was these little balls, and then when you pulled back one ball in the back, and then you let it go, right, it just took all of them forward. And I think that's what Michael is saying, Ervin, is that even though it looks like we're going backwards, it's actually becoming the means to push civilization ahead.
Wow.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean that there are some things that we have to reconnect to, that we have to rediscover. Rediscover, for example, our oneness with each other and with nature. It's something that we have forgotten. We thought of ourselves as being so separate. We can do what we want for our own immediate purposes. As long as it gives us more power, more money, we can do it. And we left behind our contact, our connection, our oneness with a wider, deeper reality, the system of life on Earth, probably the system of life in the universe. So going back means going down. It doesn't mean backwards. It means ahead, but at a deeper level. Would you agree to that? I mean, Sister Jenna, you've been talking about the third eye opening for you. How do you see our connection with that deeper reality, with what we call nature, what we call divine spirit, perhaps?
It's funny. It's funny because as you were saying about this oneness thing, what came to my heart and mind immediately is how we all have that experience of oneness, whether we are in our homes or with our partners, with our animals. It's just that, as Michael said, it hasn't been broadcasted yet far and wide. And many times when we bring our little oneness into other people's oneness, sometimes it's not aligned yet with intention. And it's almost as if everything that we're going through is to help us to dig deeper to find the purity of the soul. And that takes me to your question, brother. When my third eye opened up, I was dating the son of a prime minister. I was running 2 nightclubs that were extremely successful. And I was into everything that was beyond sacred, so to speak. And when my third eye opened up, it's not that it said any of that was wrong. But when my third eye opened up, Ervin, it said, that's so small compared to who you really are. And so when it awakened in me, the first thing was I realized that I was a soul, and that the soul was immortal, eternal, and perishable, and that it's carrying stories and many, many recordings of many lifetimes, and I need to absolve those now by deeply and intimately connecting the soul to the divine. That's how the awakening happened for me, Ervin. And the moment the familiarity of my soul's recording pulled itself away from the I, me, the mine, the gender, the role, the looks, the body, it was as if my energy went somewhere else, Ervin. It went to the divine. And that opened up my third eye, which made my 2 eyes softer. But it made me see the truth in people, which maybe they couldn't see. And it made me see the truth in myself that I couldn't see. And so it made me make decisions that were more truthful. And that's how my upshift was happening. I think it happened through wisdom. Maybe when somebody hears this show, something will open up. Their third eye will open up. It is something that God will say through one of his children. And they will go, that's true. That's it. That's it. Michael, what do you think?
You know, you said something earlier. You said 2 things earlier I want to comment on. One, we have a somewhat similar background. And I too, you know, I was attending USC at the time. I was a psychobiology major, but I was also, funding my education through the selling of cannabis sativas before it was legal.
Look at Ervin's face, Michael.
And we all have our past, Michael. We're not here to judge.
I was a pretty wild child at that particular time in my human history. And like Sister Jenna, there came a moment in which, in my particular case, in a lucid dream, I was stabbed in the heart. Oof. It was excruciating emotionally and physically, and I died. When I woke up, I could feel the love of God penetrating me beyond anything I'd ever imagined, and the beauty of everything was pulsing everywhere. A piece of lint on the rug, the flowers, the wall, everything vibrating with the love and the beauty of the presence of God. And I could never get back in that box again. That it sent me on a path of researching what had happened to me. And that's when I bumped into the teachings of Jesus, the teachings of Buddha, the Dhammapada, the Upanishads. You know, I realized what was happening to me. And like Sister Jenna, you know, everything opened up. And what I thought was important in the world at that time was insignificant, the making of money and all of this stuff. And I remember just looking at human beings saying, wow, they're chasing after the wrong stuff, you know. And at that particular period of time in my life, people thought I had just freaked out. You know, they just said, Michael has freaked out on Jesus. He's freaked out. We don't know him anymore. And I remember losing pretty much all of my friends except for one, because no one wanted to be around me because I was just, they thought I just freaked out of my mind. But as years went on, you know, and I became more integrated with that state of consciousness, those same people, many of them now attend my community, you know. But the point being, there was something I integrated those higher states, and they became a new norm. Now, each of us I see as clearinghouses. The inner work that we have done in meditation, prayer, having an insight, and then integrating that insight and embodying it. The vibration that we carry is like a clearinghouse to the thought forms of fear, doubt, worry, separation, that silently and sometimes in words assist people in remembering who they are. Sister Jenna said something important about that little mechanism that bounces the ball and everything goes. Sometimes I like to think of it like this, going back to our question of are we going to make it as well. I look at it like what we're doing is like a slingshot. Like when you take a slingshot and you pull back, there's a lot of tension. And when you let the slingshot go, then the tension shoots whatever the obstacle, or whatever the pellet is into a future. Now, the universe, being the outpicturing of the order of God, is progressive. It never goes backwards. So when we have regressive forces that stagnate us, it's creating a slingshot effect, and it's creating a tension. In us, people who are awakening are creating a field. So as something is released, we go forward really fast. So it looks dire. And actually, life is never going to work against itself.
Yeah.
Evil can never be on the throne forever because it goes against life.
Yeah.
So we are standing in an awareness of unity, of oneness. And then the tension that's being created by repressive forces is going to shoot us even forward more faster because of the nature of the progressive universe. So it comes down to us in unity, and then the progressive universe never going against itself.
And if I may piggyback on that really quick, Michael, what occurs to me is I think it feels daunting. I always like to put myself in the audience's mind and to think of the people who might be watching this right now. And some people who might be in the same place that you or Sister Jenna or myself, quite frankly, were at that point in their lives, it feels daunting to imagine, well, how do I get from over here to over there? And when is my awakening? And I just want to share a quick little story that the Kabbalah shared. It's not about trying to, boom, make that huge monumental change and expect that poof in a moment. It may happen for you that way, though it's doing the little things. And Ervin, I know you talk about this so much in the book, The Upshift. It's about the little things we can do about human beings, thinking about how we consume energy, food, how we interrelate. And the Kabbalists have this beautiful analogy where they say, if you want to imagine life like these scales, you have these two scales of justice, whatever you might want to call them. And every time any one of us, anywhere on the planet, does a single kind thing, it could be smiling at a stranger. It could be, giving someone a hug, sending a kind email, opening a door. It doesn't have to be earth-shattering and life-changing. You are dropping a sesame seed on the side for good. And every time we gossip or are unkind or uncivil, even to ourselves, or say hurtful things about ourselves, pluck, we're dropping another seed on the side of darkness or maybe ego, whatever you prefer to call it. The game we're playing as human beings is how can we get enough of those sesame seeds for good, minuscule, mind you. It doesn't have to be, yes, we're talking about an evolutionary impulse, an emergence towards the upshift, towards the greater good, though my invitation is to not get caught in the trap of thinking, oh, well, I can't go out and save the climate. I can't go do this, because that seems daunting. So, Ervin, what are your thoughts, my friend, being the one who created this upshift movement conversation in the book? What are the things that we can do? I know you and the Dalai Lama speak about it in the 3 ideals, if you will, that Michael talks about in the foreword of your book. How can we begin to do those little things like taking responsibility?
Well, we can still simply become what we were meant to be, not by forcing it, but by allowing it to come forth in us. the greatest insight that it comes to when you look at through all the insights that you get in science, that you get in spirituality, in religion, and in business and wherever. The insight is that it starts with kindness, being kind to each other, and it moves toward love. Love which is unconditional and which is ready for us to grasp, to take, to seize, to live with. Now, one of the things that we can do is to consciously overcome those many separations in the world today. Separation, Einstein said, is an illusion. There is no real separation in the world. That's true in the physical world. That's true in the intelligent world, in the intellectual world. It's true in culture. It's true in spirituality. When you are talking about soul, Sister Jenna, for example, we can avoid the dualities with soul and not soul or matter by talking about consciousness. Consciousness is something that infuses all of reality. Matter is conscious because there is no matter per se. Max Planck, the great physicist, said that there is no such thing as matter after he spent his lifetime researching matter. There is, as Michael said, vibration. Vibration which links us to each other. We can resonate with each other. So there is a way forward, and the way forward lies in us, within us. It doesn't come from above and from outside. It comes from below and from us. Now the great challenge is to have another contagion, a contagion, not a virus contagion, a love contagion. How we can learn to be loving. Start by being kind and move toward this state of love. A soul, yes, that's Sister Jenna talking about. It's not different from matter. To my mind, soul means consciousness, not as something you produce in our brain. Consciousness is something that exists in the world. That's the deepest reality of the world. This is a psychophysical universe in which consciousness infuses all things. We are a fragment of that divine consciousness. That is our mind. That could be considered our soul. And we talk about material things. We realize that there's not separate from the spiritual things. When we talk about God, I know this is a very big subject, but just to start with conversations with some of those things, we can talk about the intelligence of the universe. I've written a whole book on that with that title. But I mean, it's obviously that when you look at the new physics, the new biology, the new sociology, you find there is intelligence behind everything in the world. This is not a random universe. If it was random, we wouldn't be here. This is incredible that in the space of time, since the Big Bang, 13.7 billion years, a coherent universe emerged. It's a super coherent being, such as a living being. How could it emerge in this time? Not by randomness. That became very clear. Any calculation shows with random interactions, not even the DNA of a fruit fly would have come about. This is such a complex universe. Such a lot of factors come into it. So we live in a marvelously coherent, evolutionary universe. Becoming one with it is a great challenge, but it's a great opportunity. The old ways are being upset. The apple cart is now upset. The new way is opening. We have to find a new apple cart, a better one. One that we can pull and push together, because it's our apple, so to speak. So I'm so delighted to have all these opinions. Let's continue further.
No, it was interesting, that idea of we have to find a way to kind of reset everything. It does bring me back to what you were saying, Ervin, about, something I shared, the soul awareness, the soul consciousness. I've often wondered this question: what will it take for us to look at each other soul to soul and absolutely be non-judgmental? That it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Hindu or non, but can I see the authenticity and the beauty and the purity that you are, knowing that it's this law of nature, Ervin, and everyone, that we had to change. Michael had to do what he had to do in this incarnation when he was young, and I had to do what I had to do. And then something shifted because maybe it was just my time, everyone. But there's some of us who might be tuning on to this program, and this is your time, and you actually heard something from one of us, and that turned you on. That made you go, wait a minute. For me, I don't remember actually just hearing anything specifically. There were different things. There were different sesame seeds getting dropped. And eventually one sparked, and you're right, Ervin. I feel that it is all about consciousness. And now that we're evolving and broadcasting our soul consciousness, the other consciousness, the body consciousness, is aware that we're onto it. So all the energy that the body consciousness created, which were systems specific for different groups of people, that's being now revealed. It's not going to work anymore. So it's almost as if what we're seeing, it's pushing us towards our truth. And the only reason why it's so painful is that we're still attached to our old selves.
Sister Jenna, young people say, go with the force, or let the force be with you.
Yeah. So I'm about to say this because I'm young. Go with the force, because the force is with you.
You all have to go with the force. You are describing the force. Michael is describing the force. I try to get to that also, to describe evolution as in us, something that pushes us, makes us go forward. That's the big hope, not on the wisdom of institutions and the wisdom that is in us.
Yes.
Let's share this, have a further move. Jennifer, how do we proceed now?
Well, tying that in, I actually wanted to throw it back to something I heard Michael say many years ago in Agape, and perhaps you could expound upon this, Michael. I think it helps if perhaps we give each of you little mini sesame seeds that we could put out in the world. And Michael, there was a practice many years ago in Agape that you said, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was, every day, ask God, source, the universe, whatever it is that you consider to be your source or power, and say, what is my assignment today? What is mine to do? And since I heard that, Michael, I've said it every single day since then. And now my husband does it, and I've taught friends to do it. What are some other little rituals, things that we can do to break out and into new patterns, new cycles, new ways of being? Because as we're all talking about, things are shifting. We are seeing basically this vacuum being created with old systems decaying, medical systems, economic, education. All of these systems are decaying around the world, and that gives us a choice point. For the first time in human history, we have a choice. Do we allow the old paradigms to fall back into this vacuum? Or do we make new choices, create new practices, new rituals, new ways of being, just like you taught me so many years ago, Michael? What can we do?
That's a beautiful question. And everything that you said within your question also created a lot of answer. Now, one of the things that I do every single day, obviously I meditate every day. That's just foundational. But when I wake up, and I did it this morning, I did it before I got on the Zoom with you, I'll stand and I go into gratitude for existence, that I exist at all. I become very grateful that I'm alive. And I hold that space with some deep breathing. Then I surrender to God. I surrender to life. I surrender to the force. I surrender to the source of all creation. I yield to it. Then I say, may I have the strength and the power to complete all my assignments that come into my atmosphere today. Give me this, what is my assignment, and give me the strength to fulfill it. So I begin my day that way. And then obviously I'll enter into deeper states of meditation, but then that sets me up. Gratitude keeps you humble. And surrender, it takes you out of wrapping yourself up in a small package. And, for anyone that, it's wrapped up in themselves, makes a very small package. So surrendering to the presence of God takes your attention away from the little self. And then you have an assignment. It's about kindness, Ervin. It's about generosity. It's about compassion. It's about love. It's about creativity. And Ervin knows this probably more than any of us on this particular project. when you look at the arc over the last 30 or 40 years, what we're talking about now used to be peripheral, it's now central. It used to be woo-woo. It used to be, you hear words like consciousness and meditation and things of that particular nature. And it was always for a small group of people that were practicing some kind of occult practices. Today, it's in the nomenclature, it's in the language of our society. Meditation, visualization, turning within. So we can actually see the arc of unfoldment in our lifetime. And what happens, since we are timeless beings, and since the truth is timeless, as it becomes more active within us, then it quickens the evolution. It quickens the unfoldment. This is what I meant when I was saying earlier, that it's not going to take a long time to make the change, because that which is real and true is timeless. And as it becomes integrated in us, things happen very fast. So we go into gratitude, we go into surrender, we go into our assignment, we have a baseline of meditation. The timeless becomes an insight, and things appear to move very fast, much faster. Manifestation takes place faster. And we're in that arc now. I mean, Sister Jenna alluded to that by moving out of the Kali Yuga age. You know, the vibration and frequency is much higher. Things happen quicker. But as she said earlier, what are we feeding? You know, when we introspect, are we feeding fear, doubt, worry, and separation? Or are we feeding kindness and love, generosity, coming into a non-judgmental space and seeing the truth about each other? That's our work.
So beautiful, Michael. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and thank you to each of you for all the work you have done for decades now in the world to reveal light, reveal love in your own lives. And as Sister Jenna said, maybe there is something that one of us has said that sparks that sesame seed of light within each and every one of us. As we continue on this journey, I invite you to look for that tiny little spark, that sesame seed, that spark of light in every human being. And in doing so, that opens us up to greater compassion for ourselves and for the other. It's so important to always remember, even if we may disagree with someone's perspective, their background, what they did or didn't do, could we still connect to that spark of light? Ervin, did you have any closing thoughts for us today for our amazing conversation we've just had with these beautiful friends, Sister Jenna and Michael Bernard Beckwith?
Jennifer, this is not a closing conversation. This is an opening conversation.
True story, my friend.
Beginning a series in which you ask such questions and come with such outstanding people. People who are outstanding are not because they are rich or famous. Other people can also be that. It's because they can think deeply. Think reality. Remember this. Einstein said there are two ways you can live your life. Either if everything is a miracle or as if nothing is. He lived as if everything is a miracle, and he found that the universe is indeed a miraculous universe. Remember that. It brought us force. It brought life force. It is all the time evolving. It is a holographic universe. You know, in a hologram, everything that is in the whole is in every part. And the universe evolves toward higher levels of coherence, integration, oneness, and that is in us. That is what evolves in us. The time has come to realize it. We can be thankful in an odd way, paradoxical way, for all the crises that we're living through, because it upsets the old way. And it opens the way to a new way of looking at ourselves and looking at the world. The data is there. It's not just imagination. It is deep inside, yes, but it's also good science. This is an evolving universe, and we are part of it. No longer a difference between, or a divergence between good science and good spirituality. We are spiritual, scientific beings. And this is the way that we can move forward. And it's my deepest gratefulness and thanks to our eminent guests and to you, Jennifer, for moderating, because this is a kind of conversation that we would like to have, that we will have. We will not be able to easily match this one, but we'll do our best. And we look forward to having a series of conversation in which you who look at this can be involved, can ask those questions, and can perhaps find your way. Look forward to a way in which you can get the answers. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being with us and for staying with us as we move together in the road of upshift through our conversations.
Well, welcome back, everybody. This is Ken D. Foster. We're right between speakers again, and I just want to give you an inspiring message. You know, if you want to change your life, you got to change your thinking, right? Our thoughts dictate our world. What you think within yourself, you outpicture in the world. You get that, right? You know, it's been said that thought is the kingpin of which we design a brilliant life. And I know our speakers are talking about that. Dr. Laszlo connects with that. Look at the life he's created, 106 books, 2 Nobel Peace Prize nominations, and inspiration for the world, which will outlast him this is his legacy. It'll outlast him forever and ever. So how did he do that? Well, he did this by what I'm saying right now. He was able to start to use his mind in a way to focus on his dream of helping others upshift their consciousness as he upshifted his own consciousness to the point where it's pure wisdom that flows through Dr. Laszlo on a continuous basis. If that's what you want, then listen to these upshift conversations, take deep notes. That's my encouragement to you, and set your intention. I'm going to change anything that's inside of me that disrupts my peace, my harmony, my love. I'm going to start to focus on what it is that I'm choosing to have in my life that brings those qualities of peace, harmony, and love in my life in greater and greater ways. Okay, that's my message between the speakers. Hope you enjoy. And here we go. Here's our next speaker, and I hope you'll enjoy our next one too. I know you will. They're all amazing, aren't they?
Today's unusual guest is Dr. Alberto Villoldo. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Alberto, but you'll correct me if I didn't. He's a medical anthropologist, psychologist, and shaman who studied the spiritual practices of the Amazon and the Andes for more than 30 years. While at San Francisco State University, he founded the Biological Self-Regulation Laboratory to study how the mind creates psychosomatic health and disease. Founder of the Four Winds Society, he instructs individuals throughout the world in the practice of energy medicine. Dr. Villoldo has written numerous best-selling books, including Power Up Your Brain, The Neuroscience of Enlightenment with Dr. David Perlmutter, Shaman, Healer, Sage, and Wall Street Journal bestseller, One Spirit Medicine.
Welcome, this tremendous opportunity to speak again with Alberto Villoldo, whom I met many years ago. We're looking forward to meeting again in person, but let's make the most of this opportunity. The whole issue of mind and its role in the current situation of the planet and of Earth and of humanity on Earth is absolutely a crucial issue. To shed light on it, as Alberto Villoldo had, is a tremendous treasure these days. I just want to add that I feel that discussions like this, talking about the role of mind and consciousness in creating a world that humans can live in, that can strive together with the rest of life on planet, that is one of the key issues of our time. It's one of the key necessities to look into this. So this program, and with its many podcasts, many episodes, always with unique personalities who have contributed to this great challenge, is a great treasure and a great resource. So I'm delighted, without further ado, to say that I look forward to a discussion with Fred, as always, and with Alberto Villoldo of Chile and of the whole civilized world. Thank you for this opportunity.
Wonderful. Welcome, Alberto. Would you like to say a few words before I pose a little question to jumpstart the conversation?
Yes, it's an honor to be with you today. It's a pleasure. I know that we are all working together to really launch the start of a new humanity, because the old humanity is really becoming extinct and has really not done a very good job of itself. And this is what the shamans call dreaming a new world into being. And it's done as, like the Tao says, when nothing is done, nothing is left undone. It has to be an inner emergence of a consciousness and of a set of behaviors and values that are in contrast to the ones that we've been living so far. So it's an honor for me to be with you today, and with Ervin, that I met years ago, and I've admired your work for a very long time. Thank you.
It seems that our archaic limbic brain has dominated and defined us for ages. Yet there were periods in ancient history where we did indeed flourish. So is this now merely a question of, shall we say, stimulating and exercising our atrophied musculature to maintain this new brain, to stimulate our spiritual musculature and keep it limber to avoid contracting back into its historic, habitually destructive position? Alberto, would you like to start?
Sure. The limbic brain is a very ancient brain. We shared it with the Neanderthals. And when I was at San Francisco State, I was directing a small brain laboratory to see if we could create psychosomatic health, because we knew we could create psychosomatic disease. But there's no part of the brain that's bad. It's just that this is a very outdated brain that has 4 operating programs, which are fear. It's fear-based. It's the amygdala. It's fear, feeding, hoarding. This is mine, and I have to protect what's mine, and I'm not sharing. Fear, feeding, fighting, aggression, projecting the enemy out to the other, and predatory sexuality. So this is a brain that was really important when we had, jaguars and lions stalking us. But today it's an important brain, but it cannot be in the driver's seat any longer. We have to really upgrade to the higher brain of science, of logic, of music, of quantum physics, of interconnectedness, of mystical experiences. So yes, it's time for that new brain that's going to help us have a new humanity and right relationship with the earth. But the problem, of course, is how do we get to it? And this is what the shamans of old mastered, even though they didn't know the brain and the neuroanatomy and neurons and neurotransmitters. They knew how to access these ancient. This is the birthright of every human, is to awaken these extraordinary capabilities of the mind. And this is why I have stopped identifying with the science part. The science is important, and more with the ancient wisdom, which is so necessary today for us to have a new relationship with the earth.
So true.
I want to say, we are talking about tapping the source, going back, going to the origins. Now, we can't just go to the limbic brain. We have to overcome it, actually. How can a shaman help us to tap into the source again, to be able to choose how our brain operates and overcome the old limbic fear-based brain? What could a shaman do? What did you do as a shaman? What can we learn from you?
Yeah. Well, first, the shamans were biologists. They were very careful observers of nature. And they noticed that there were only 3 species, and today we know this from science, 3 species in the planet that did not have death programmed into their DNA. And these were humans, whales, and dolphins, orcas. Every other, the 40 million species in the planet, 39.9 million died when they were no longer reproductively viable. There are no grandmothers in nature. Grandmothers don't exist in nature, except for these 3 species. The orca grandmothers teach the young how to communicate, how to hunt. Our grandmothers were the wisdom keepers. So we're taking part in an experiment in intelligence, what biology calls intelligence and what the ancients call spirituality, which is consciousness. These 3 species have been selected, and biology is always experimenting. Let me give you a quick example of another experiment. In the Andes, the people that live in very high altitude, where I did my research as an anthropologist, the experiment was big hearts, short stature, big hearts, a lot of hemoglobin, oxygen transport. The experiment in the Himalayas was different. In the Himalayas was more mitochondria, energy factories inside every cell. The experiment in the Himalayas succeeded because the Sherpas can climb up to Mount Everest without oxygen. But in the Andes, it didn't work out very well. People were dying young at high altitude. So biology's continually experimenting. And we're part of a critical experiment right now where a new species is being born in the planet. The shamans of old predicted the birth of a human that they call Homo luminous, not Homo sapiens. So the thing is, how do you take part in that evolutionary process? How do you awaken this higher brain to be able to be part of the experiment that biology is taking, has invited us to participate in? They did it with certain diets, certain foods that they ate, with certain plants, certain visionary plants, certain practices, meditation, contemplation practices. And they discovered that when you combine these 3 with the lifestyle, the contemplation, feeding that brain fats instead of sugars, breaking out of the Western diet that's killing us today, that you would access these capabilities, but you had to, and when you access this brain, you experience oneness, you experience bliss, you began to produce the brain chemicals for bliss and not for stress, not the adrenaline, the cortisol, the stress hormones, but the bliss hormones, which were the endogenous psychedelics, the endogenous sacred plants that we manufacture inside the brain, very small amount. When we meditate, when we make love, when we are born and when we die. So the shamans of old discovered how we could take part in that experiment. And in the East, of course, the experiment was done through the practice of meditation. In the West, we contemplate that experiment through prayer, and the mystics, the Christian mystics were great examples of this. The shamans did that through what they call journeying, the displacing of consciousness through space and time to break free of the bonds of temporality, to discover a kind of time that didn't go in one direction only, that didn't fly like an arrow, but that turned like a wheel, where you could future track, you could guide the villagers to where the fish were going to be the next day, or the hunters to where the buffalo were going to be, or humanity to where humanity could evolve into. So they were ancient researchers, and when I was a graduate student, I learned that Native American peoples were stupid because they were illiterate. If you cannot read or write, you're illiterate, and that means that you're not smart. And I would ask my professors, well, how could they build pyramids if they were stupid or illiterate? You need mathematics, they were astronomers, they were architects. But the greatest technologies were not the outer technologies, but the inner ones. And this is, we have a great heritage coming from the East, and from Fred's background and his research, and in the Eastern traditions, the Chinese they left us a body of written knowledge beautiful. The sutras, the Vedas, exquisite. But in the Americas, there was no writing. It was all an oral tradition. So we don't have access to that form of learning that's so Western or so really, if you have a written tradition, you have access to 5,000 years of wisdom. We don't have that with shamanism. And that's one of the great voids that we have in these traditions that were nearly obliterated with the conquest, with the arrival of the Spanish.
No, I mean, I'm just recognizing and with admiration what Alberto can say, how shamanism is the most practical thing that we could have today for creating that new old brain, and how we could practice that. I hope that in this program, Alberto will come back and tell us a little bit how young people, how people who are eager to do and open, how they can start out on the road to shamanism, to becoming shamans. Maybe we could create small groups that can change the world, small groups of shamans that can change the world. It's a fantastic prospect, has not been explored. So I look forward to some of these practical comments from Alberto, but I think you want to go on first with Fred, and then we see how we go.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
And
can I just jump in on that just very briefly? Thank you, Ervin. And you know, just to finish with the brain, the limbic brain needs ceremony in order to change. And that's why you have ceremonies everywhere in the world, in every culture. That brain will not change unless it has ceremony, and ideally a sacred ceremony. So that's one of the contributions, I think, of these ancient traditions.
I want to suggest that because you made an incredibly important point about not losing the wisdom, the ancient wisdom and the shamanic traditions that are not written down, because the West is such a visual culture, might it be that we can visualize shamanism through videos, ceremonies that are almost, edutainment, entertainment and education at the same time, that showcase shamanism, so that could be more of a Western way to preserve the traditions, while we have the great works written from the East and preserved in that way. But
I'll be happy to share a little ceremony with you later that we can do with fire, with a candle. So yes.
If shamanism is nature, but so much of the world is at this moment completely disconnected from nature, and much of the world, not all of it, but good parts, are living in dense cities, atmospheres that are really contrary to the very notion of nature. How is it that how do we encourage this shamanic energetic to be present? It's almost like, it feels to many people like working against gravity. What do you say to this? I always think of monks that live, and pray, and they're up in the monasteries in Tibet and other remote regions where they're encircled by and enclosed within an ambiance that's supportive of, as I imagine you've encountered in these tiny hamlets and jungles that you visited over so many years of your research. So how do people in the cities, in the dense cities, and the energy of the city life access this, find this balance?
We have to return to nature. In the shamanic traditions that I trained in, I first went as an anthropologist, taking a camera, shooting movies, interviewing, and then one of the shamans said to me, "Alberto, we have to heal you first." And I said, "But I'm 30 years old, I'm in perfect health." He says, "No, we have to heal your ignorance, your stupidity." So I think that we have to begin with that kind of healing and the understanding. Physicists tell us that 95% of reality is invisible. They call it dark matter, or dark energy, and shamans tell us 95% of reality is also invisible. It's the invisible world, which is natural. It's not supernatural. It's part of the natural world. It's just simply the invisible part of it. And now, many years ago, I was in the Amazon, and I cut myself, and I was putting some antibiotic cream, and this medicine woman says, what are you doing with that cream? We have some herbs. I said, well, they're these invisible bacteria that could become infectious. And they go, oh, invisible bacteria, what are they? They're invisible beings. And she says, like spirits? And I go, no, like bacteria. She says, oh no, if it's invisible, it's got to be spirits. So the following month, I take one of the microscopes from the laboratory, and I take it down to the Amazon, and I put a drop of rainwater that I took from a leaf, and I put it in a slide, and I call the elders of the village to come and to look at, and they go, my God, there's a world in there. He said, yeah, these are the invisible beings that I was telling you about. They're called bacteria. And they go, wow. So it's easier for me to convince a shaman that bacteria exist than for me to convince a scientist that the invisible world, unless you're talking to a physicist, that the invisible world is real. It's populated. It's full of consciousness. Consciousness is the nature of reality. So this is the very first step. It's a return to nature. It's not only going for a walk in the woods, but restoring your gut flora. This is your ecosystem. This is where all of these bacteria migrated to the forest inside your gut, because that's where they found the most food. And then we have a symbiotic relationship with them. But our relationship to nature is parasitic. It's not symbiotic. It's we humans take without giving back. So connecting to nature doesn't mean only getting out of the city. It means connecting to the invisible world, connecting to the mystery. Connecting to the mystery. And one of the early things that struck me when I was in the Amazon is that for an Amazon person, there's no difference between being killed by a microbe and being killed by a jaguar. They're the same thing. You have to be in right relationship with microbes and with jaguars. Otherwise, they're both going to look at you as lunch. But for us in the West, being killed by a microbe is an illness, and being killed by a jaguar is bad luck. So there are fundamental differences in worldviews that we have to explore today, especially as our old worldview, or what we call a paradigm, is collapsing around us. Which is a very patriarchal, reductionistic, masculine, atomistic paradigm. And the shamanic is a very feminine. It's not objective, it's subjective, it's participatory. And that's beginning to make place for itself again. Again, this is the balancing between yin and yang, and the masculine, feminine, the cyclical nature of these changes. And so today, I believe that we have to become shamans versed in science, but not only in Western science, and definitely not in medical science, because most of medical science is really bad science. It's flawed. When you have the editor of the most prominent medical journal in the world, The Lancet, saying that half of the articles that they publish are bogus. It's an interesting article. It's called "Where is Medicine's 5 Sigma?" 5 Sigma is the level of reliability and validity. And he's saying half of the science that we publish is bad. We just don't know which half. So we have to find to rediscover that ancient science that's participatory, that's based on experience and on exploring, using the mind to study the mind, and not only to study the world, not only to study physical reality. But we're in a very exciting time, because as this old paradigm is crumbling, tremendous opportunities are presenting themselves.
Exactly. this is what we are devoting ourselves more and more in this group, you see. I have myself tried to represent what we call the new paradigm. Fred was talking about the quantum paradigm. We're talking about the same thing. I have created the Laszlo Institute for New Paradigm Research. The key, I think, to many of the issues today is to recognize the faultiness of dualism and materialism in the classic mode. Recognize that we are not outside of nature and not above it, that we are together form part of a larger whole, and that whole is the sphere of life. How to access that? I mean, there are so many ways. What you are describing here is one important way that is not as well known as many others. In medicine, as I think I know, you know, and I've been very much involved, although I'm not a medical person, I've been involved with a new paradigm in medicine, which we call the information medicine, based on information and on frequencies, on energy levels, and the equilibrating the body's energy flows. I think this also, it was used to be called an alternative medicine. It's now becoming a complementary medicine, complementing the classical approaches. We still need surgery when it's necessary. We still need antibiotics when they're necessary. But to keep healthy, to maintain health, we need to know that the whole body is an information system coupled to the information system of life and of the universe. And this new old knowledge, which is surfacing now, is one of the most remarkable and most encouraging aspects of what is happening today.
We used to look at food as calories, and now we're looking at food as information, and how certain foods will switch on the genes that create health, and we call it epigenetics, and silence the genes that create disease. It's all information, and ultimately, now the shamans differentiate between information and wisdom. Information is knowing that water is H2O, but wisdom is being able to make it rain. So it's the quality of the information, of that wisdom, that can create health or create disease, and that can create a new relationship with the earth that's symbiotic and collaborative and of stewardship.
Well, that's the wisdom of the body, which is the wisdom of the universe also. And to tap into that, to become really closer to that, not at that level of that's something we have to learn, we have to acquire, as you acquire a bit of knowledge by repeating it. It's something that we have to becoming the change, as Gandhi said, that we want to see. But that change that we need to become is to recognize that we are part of a vibrating frequency defined, and the whole system of which life is a manifestation. And the energy, what the shamans are doing, what the new medicine is doing, time and space transcending across time and space. Many of the aspects of this new medicine work over distance. I have friends who practice this remote healing, and I'm sure you have experience on that as well.
Yeah. I was in a mountaintop in the Andes years ago, telling a group of shamans about chaos theory, and about the butterfly that flapped its wings in Beijing and started a storm in the Caribbean. And after I finished telling them that, one of them says, "Okay, Alberto, show us." And I go, "What do you mean show you? This is physics." He says, "No, show." And I had a brand new PhD. And he said, "Come on, flap your little doctor wings and heal somebody in India." And I said, "I can't do that." He said, "We can."
And nowadays, I think there is a new branch of medicine coming together, formation, which is practicing remote healing. I am being healed today. I just want to tell you on a personal level, I have been being healed for decades now, over distance, over remote. And it's an experience that is incontrovertible. It does exist, it does work, and it's amazing. We are non-local beings, we can non-locally interact, and we can heal ourselves. You have known that, as the shamans have known that. We need to rediscover it and put it into practice.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you.
Alberto, wellness versus balance. Well-being and wellness are certainly becoming trendy in the best sense, but we know that trends themselves can be upended by ego and become unhealthy. So within this critical emerging domain, how important is the word balance to the equation, given that people are hungry for a healthy fix and yet the propensity to overeat? Is it possible, in other words, to overdose or overeat on consciousness and healing?
Well, thank you for that question. And, to me, it's such an honor and a pleasure to be with Ervin and to hear them that I just as soon listen to them. But I'll try to give you my take on it, is that if you're going to get indigestion, it better be on consciousness. Because you can heal much more rapidly, and it doesn't destroy your flora like other kinds of indigestion do. And here, the quandary that the shamans face is that there's certain things that you cannot solve, and there's certain things that you can not heal unless you address the core fundamental question, which is, who am I? And when you get to the series of, first you begin by who I am not, and then ultimately you begin to have an experience of who you are, and then ultimately you have a realization that you don't really exist as an ego, and that you're part of this fluid process of creation and co-creation that has acquired identity for a particular reason and purpose, which is to be able to serve a part of a sacred plan, or be part of a sacred unfolding. And then the shaman acquires the power to create health. But it has to transcend the personal need or necessity for that. So at a very high level of health, we create that. We create our health the same way we create our illnesses. It has to be supported by what we eat, by how we love, and how we forgive, and how do we craft a sacred journey in our lives that is in service to a higher calling.
Love it. Ervin, final words. Love that.
Just an invitation to Alberto. What he is doing, what he has been doing and continues to do is so important and relatively unknown, as known to experts and known to shamans. But an invitation to contribute, to help us do research into this, to write up his conclusions. We have this research institute, the Laszlo Institute of New Paradigm Research, and this is a research topic par excellence. How can this state of mind, which the shamans have developed, which people of spiritual nature and practice have been developing East and West, how can we bring this to the people today so that they can benefit from it? There's a very great need for it. This is part of returning to nature. One of the paths, one of the avenues for returning to nature in an effective and practical way. So I hope that Alberto will consider this invitation and write us an article, write us a book. You'll have to read this out. I think there's a great need for it, and it will be our pleasure and privilege to do that.
Thank you, Ervin. Thank you, and I accept. Thank you for that invitation. I think it's important to bring the ancient Americas into the conversation, and I thank you for inviting me to be part of this conversation with you today.
It has been an absolute joy. I wish we had more time to actually visualize and vivify some of the shamanic practices, but maybe a video of that will also ensue after you finish writing the book for Ervin. We'll keep you busy. Well, that concludes today's really insightful and compelling discussion. And our shamanic wonder, Alberto Villoldo. Thank you.
Hi, Ken D. Foster here. Wow, another great session. Hope you're enjoying. Are you taking lots of notes? I hope you are. I hope you're also passing this on to your family and friends and possibly listening to these over and over again. I hope you really take us up on that. You know, we have an offer for you that you can purchase all the summit speakers and listen to them over and over again, or you can listen to and purchase all the Upshift conversations that Dr. Ervin Laszlo has done over the last couple of years. They're profound. They are profound. If you just listen to one Upshift conversation per week over the next 52 weeks, I'll guarantee your life will change. The way that you show up in the world will change. The inner environment, the outer environment will change. You'll have more joy, happiness, probably more abundance. Of course you will. And financial success. You'll have success in all areas of life, quite frankly. So I hope you'll really take a deep dive into that, really consider it. We priced it at a price point that everybody can afford so that you can listen to these upshift conversations time and time again. Now, what are we upshifting to? We're upshifting to oneness. We're upshifting to a consciousness of oneness. It's a consciousness that when you can live from that consciousness on a consistent basis, morning, noon, and night, right? Everything starts to really shift in your life. So hope you'll take us up on that and check it out. These are so brilliant. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I feel so filled with love and enjoy when I listen to the speakers, and especially when I listen to Dr. Laszlo's wisdom. It just upshifts me. I hope it's doing the same to you. All right, here we go. We're going to go to our next speaker.
You are more popular here in Europe. And Ervin, I'm wondering if for you, being in Europe, are you more popular, for example, in the US, or do you not gauge this?
Yes,
I'm just
probably more so. In Italy, I just had a book from a major two major publishers come out. So I think it's catching up a little bit here. But certainly I have been more known in the US audiences, especially in New York and West Coast than anywhere in Europe.
That's so interesting. And what about both of you in terms of Asia? Because this book, Dawn of an Era of Well-Being, is written with Ervin Laszlo and Fred Tsao, bringing East and West together. I wonder how this is going to impact both of your reputations now in the Eastern part of the planet.
Well, we'll see. We'll see when it comes up.
Yeah.
I'm sure Howard's work is known in Japan and in China, that I know. And
yeah, I think so. I think that, you know, I hope that Ervin's message and his work, I've seen his book. It's a wonderful book, Ervin. It's also being published by Riverside Press, which is the publisher we use now. So we have the same publisher, Bill Gladstone and his group.
Yeah. Waterside.
Publish our books. And so they sent me a PDF copy of yours. It's a wonderful book. It's a deep message. It's an important message for the planet right now. And I hope that audiences all around the world, including Asia, have an opportunity to begin to explore that. Asia is, of course, the emerging market on the third dimensional level in the world. I'm not so sure about where it's going in consciousness. Certainly on the material side of things, it's the big game right now. And I've been to China like probably 8 or 9 times. But it's a very complex society, and all those countries are. And I don't know, you know, where that's really headed, you know, for them.
Well,
one of the questions, please go ahead, Ervin.
No, I mean, it's we will see. I mean, now through the internet, things are coming in all the time. I got a wonderful message about half an hour ago from Australia. And you never can tell what's showing up next, and showing me the 14th century Buddha, Japanese Buddha, was saying in his book about how to become a Buddha in one's lifetime. He's saying things very similar to what we are saying here, you know. So I was delighted. I spent the last half hour actually reading that and inserting that into my book. prior to looking forward to Howard's material, which I also want to insert a greater detail. But I mean, it's interesting. You can't tell but who wakes up next.
Well said.
It is a little bit like popcorn, isn't it? So that, the next country or the next, culture is going to suddenly pop open a little bit, awaken a little bit. And as Ervin has often said, it's not all at the same time and same way.
I look forward to getting down to substance, Alison. Why don't you start us and ask the questions so that we can get down to the nitty-gritty?
That's exactly what I wanted to do. And here we go, because I wanted to, Howard, before I ask you questions, can you just recap for the audience again what this heart sensor app is, how it functions? Because I have two important questions to ask you off the heels of.
Talking about our technology, Alison?
Pardon me?
You were talking about HeartMath technology?
The sensor.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, when we started our research many years ago, we were trying to decode what we felt was happening inside the body, that there was a communication taking place between the physical heart, the brain, and throughout the system. And of course, our scientists, along with others, did discover that, in fact, the heart was an information processing center, that it was sending important commands to the brain throughout the system. We also determined that those communications improved when we were in emotional states that were long associated with this concept of heart. When we were more loving, for example, more compassionate, kinder, more caring, that heart-brain-body communication improved. But we needed to be able to decode that. And the way that they went about it, our researchers at the HeartMath Institute, was through looking at something called heart rate variability, which is the changes in heart rate, the timing between heartbeats, not like a fitness monitor measuring just how fast or slow, but measuring the timing between heartbeats. And that became the measurement of looking at heart-brain-body communication. Once that was figured out, we knew that if you could train somebody to improve that communication, it would change their lives. So we needed to take that scientific technology and turn it into something that ordinary people could understand and use. So we began to develop products that related to that. The most recent one that we have that's by far the most popular is called the Inner Balance Trainer. And it works on smartphones and tablets. It's that kind of a technology. So it's really the first of that type of technology to give reliable heart rate variability analysis on a mobile device. And you get a sensor, you attach it to your earlobe, and you download the app for free, and you begin to see your heart rhythm patterns in real time. And then through patented algorithm we develop, it tells you how ordered they are. And the term for that is coherent. More coherent is better, right? So people all around the world use this technology. It's been used in every walk of life for a variety of purposes, far beyond what we could have predicted or controlled. And it's helping people with things like health improvement, learning to better understand and regulate their emotions, which is, I think, the most important benefit that it has in today's world. It also is being used for lots of performance things, in business and sports and education with children, things like that. And that's just the technology side of HeartMath. HeartMath is a system that's about living a heart-directed life. Technology just came along as a byproduct of scientific research we were doing to help understand the mechanics of how heart could actually be changing a person's life.
I'm so curious because we were just talking, the three of us, about, the implications of AI and all the technological advancements that are almost getting ahead of us. I wanted to ask you if the heart sensor app is, for lack of a better term, almost like a lie detector test for the brain, so that if a person can actually see their heart-centered truth, in a sense, via its disturbing or relaxing fluctuations in relation to whatever context they're hooked up to at the moment. Can this inform, we're living in an age of fake truth, for lack of a better term. Can this be almost like a detector, a sensor for truthful heart-centered experience in a situation, in a life situation?
Well, let me put it to you this way. I think it can be a good indicator, a strong indicator. There's no technology that really measures that. That's between us and us. It's between our own soul and our own personal existence, right? An example of that I'll give you would be as we get older, we begin to lose heart rate variability. So there can be people that have beautiful hearts, wonderful hearts, beautiful ability to express the emotions of the heart that may not score well on that technology, simply because their heart rate variability patterns are going to be, compromised through normal aging, right? Which means that someone who is a grandparent that has deep love for their children and grandchildren may not score well on our technology. But that does not say that their heart is not a big, giant, loving, beautiful heart, right? So in a sense, the technology is an indicator. Where it is, in a sense, what you call a lie detector test is when you're doing a meditative practice. It keeps me, for example, on track. I can get up in the morning and I sit down to do my heart focus practice before I come to work, just like before I come to this interview today with Ervin. And my intention would be to get as solid in the heart as I can so that I can be as clear and then also as loving and as I can be and as connected to you and to Ervin as I can be. And that would be the intention. But along the way, the thoughts about what's going to happen next, about the other meetings I have coming up, about the projects that I'm concerned about, all those things begin to invade my intention. Well, the inner balance trainer is going to show me that. It's going to show me when I'm really solidly locked into that heart, those heart feelings, or when I've floated off. And so it can provide a reliable guide, let's put it that way, that can help me stay on track with my original intention. But it doesn't measure a true person's deeper heart, though. Sorry, nothing does that. That's bigger. That's a bigger game than any technology.
Howard, let me ask a question that's very much on my heart and also on my mind and consciousness. And this question that's, to me, it's very exciting. We know that the brain picks up information, but it's from the world around us. But that brain is at the same time a filter. It only picks up very selected kind of information. Now, some of the information that seems to be reaching us, but is not translated by the brain into a conscious level, is what is known as non-ordinary experiences. The altered state experiences. Some of these experiences seems to be coming to us at the frequencies that are lower than the regular beta frequencies. They're coming at theta or alpha or even below. And I was wondering, just as a hypothesis, could it be that the heart picks up information of this non-ordinary kind, maybe loving information, oneness kind of information, before the brain picks it up? And in fact, it's sometimes the heart communicates it, and then you have this coherence between heart and brain, and maybe it gets transferred to the brain. But maybe the heart is there ahead of the brain. And maybe what we need is more of that kind of information reaching the brain. Maybe that would make us into a more loving, more coherent person. What do you think of this possibility?
Well, I'll be glad to answer your question. First of all, I love how you think. I love how you use your consciousness to ponder questions like that. I think that's a beautiful thing about you, Ervin. I admire that a lot in you. My feeling is that the heart actually accesses a field of information that's nonlinear, that extends beyond the normal confines of what we call logical linear intelligence, or even beyond the boundaries of time and of space. And it is through the heart that we access this field of information that then translates itself into experiences like you mentioned, or into intuitive insight and things like that. My belief is this, is what happens is that we access that field through the field of the heart. It's transmitted at super high speed to the brain, where the brain begins to do what it does best, which is to analyze it, to filter it, to compartmentalize it, then to turn it into something that we can begin to use to determine reality. It happens so fast that the brain's getting credit for it. It's like, the brain begins to interpret, it's all here. But I think that the entry point into that field that you're talking about actually comes from here. It's actually coming from here. And we have done one, it was a study that indicates that. It's a published study in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine. It's on what was called the electrophysiology of intuition. In that study, test subjects were a lot of physiology was being measured: brain waves, skin response measurements, several kinds of heart measurements, heart evoked potentials, complex, don't ask me to explain it, heart rate variability. A lot of biology was being monitored. The test subject would sit in front of a computer. The computer had been loaded with images, intentional images. Some of the images were intentionally horrific, like scary, people being stabbed, snakes, those kind of things. The other images were very beautiful and evocative images, things like bunny rabbits and sunsets and rainbows and things like that. And in the computer was randomly selecting. It wasn't programmed. It was in a random selection modality. A test subject would press a button, would be prompted to press a button in a handheld button they had. They pushed that button and the screen would stay blank for 6 seconds. Then the picture would come, stay on the screen for 3 seconds, then it would go away. And then the prompt would come again, press the button, and the process was repeated over and over and over with lots of images. What we found was amazing. We found that in many cases, the physiological response to the picture that was going to be there actually was happening 6 seconds before the picture emerged. 6 seconds before the picture showed up, the body was doing what it would do if that kind of picture would be on the screen. And it happened over and over and over. And it was amazing. Then when they began to decode the physiological traffic in the body, what's happening inside the body, the second level of analysis, when they decoded that, they found out that the heart was first to respond about 6 seconds out. About 1.5 seconds later, the brain responded. And then a second and a half before the picture came to the screen, they coupled at a frequency level. There was a frequency coupling between heart and brain. Then the picture emerged. So that the process was heart and brain come together, picture shows up. And so this was happening over and over again. Now, this was a published study, a peer-reviewed published study in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine. It indicates that we are taking in information from the heart, that the heart is receiving, not just sending information, and that it is perhaps accessing this field that Ervin was referring to, a field that's giving us experiences that are unexplainable, that are not explained through the normal logical intelligence. I'll finish now by taking it one more level. I was on a flight with Dr. Roland McCready, the director of research at the Heart Math Institute, and I asked him to explain that study to me in more detail so that if I ever needed to talk about it, like right now, I would fully understand it. And he said, yeah. And he said, what's interesting, he said, the heart can be picking up information a lot beyond 6 seconds. And I said, well, how is that? He says, 6 seconds was where the research protocol was set to. In other words, the 6 seconds was just where they set the protocol, that they were measuring what was happening in that 6 second gap. But what if it's 6 hours or 6 days or 6 years? Who knows? So the implications were very large in that. And that's one way we've scientifically looked at it. Now, I'm not saying it definitively proves what Ervin has astutely brought to our conversation, but it is, again, a strong indicator that the heart is receiving information from a field of information that is not bound by the normal constraints of time and of space.
That's amazing.
Is there research being done?
Terrifically important conclusion.
It was a long answer to your question, Ervin. Sorry, but you asked me a big question. I gave a big answer.
It is, but it is fundamental. Another thing that sort of interests me very much is, I've talked at some time, a year ago or so, I've published a book about reconnecting to the source. We have asked a dozen, actually 19 thought leaders, people who are both scientists and spiritual people, and asked them if they have unusual experiences, spiritual experiences. And these are could be considered somehow advanced high consciousness people who used to think in a deep sense. They came up with they had such experiences, and the experiences are very similar. They were all experiences of love, oneness, and belonging. They were all experiences of connection. Could it be that the heart is more sensitive to this kind of signals that occur perhaps at another frequency level, maybe very deep frequencies, slow frequencies, maybe very exaltation levels, very high frequencies on the EEG spectrum. And maybe the heart is responding almost instantly, and then it communicates it to the brain, and from the brain to the body. I mean, would the heart be a way of expanding our level of awareness, expanding to levels that we don't ordinarily access because the brain is filtering it out? I mean, that to me would be a fascinating thing, because it would indicate a higher level of maturity in consciousness of individual spirituality. At the same time, is a more expanded kind of information field. We access more of the information field. We are more at home in the world around us. I'm expanding what you are saying in a scientific sense, but these are the implications. When we are more mature, we experience more, and when we experience more, it's the heart that leads the way. This is what I'm suspecting. How does it sound to you?
Well, I'm rather biased because my life's work has been an exploration of heart, right? So, yes, I think you're exactly right. I'll put it in a little different language that maybe you can resonate with, or the viewer can resonate with. Science can only take us so far right now, because we're trying to measure events or experience or consciousness is happening at a different dimensional level. And so the technology we have today can only measure within the dimension that we are existing in. So we get indicators, we get insights, we get some proof. But what's really happening is we are accessing a field of information that's in a different dimension.
Wonderful.
It's a dimensional difference. And so science can only give us the indicators. The experiences themselves are the real proof that we are doing that. And so we're moving, I think, as a global society, even though it doesn't appear to be. We're moving through a dimensional shift in the overall consciousness field. We're moving from a paradigm that's been instated very well on planet Earth in the third dimensional consciousness, which is a dimension that has got wonderful aspects to it, but it's basically a dimension of duality and of separation. And that's one of the core principles of third dimensional thinking. And we're moving beyond that into the fourth dimensional consciousness, which is more inclusive. You used the term a minute ago, Ervin, when you were describing the experiences of connection, and harmony and cooperation. And I think that's the dimension we're moving into now, where that is becoming a stronger dimensional force. And science is helping us with that. And it is the heart qualities, to me, that create that connection. What creates the separation are things like our judgments, our biases, our desire to separate, our desire to make ourselves better than another. All those things are not what heart is. And the qualities of the heart are the kind of qualities that do create that sort of connection and harmony. When we're in a loving state, we don't judge people. We allow for them to be themselves, right? And we allow them to connect. When we are being compassionate, we're not putting someone down. We're actually demonstrating that we have an understanding of what they're going through. And that's connection. And one of the main things that I'm saying today in my work, in the work of heart math really, is it gets simple in a certain way. The next step in human evolution is learning to get along better. We've got to learn to get along. And the world right now is so polarized, and it doesn't look like we're moving in the right direction. But when I step back and when I'm able to find a little of my own higher vibration, I see a different worldview. I see that we are progressing in the right way at the right timing, and that we are evolving as quickly as we can. We can't handle much more. that it's evolving us, and all the world events that are so disconcerting and so challenging for each and every one of us are actually evolving us, moving us to the point of getting to a place to where we will be able to actually understand and manifest getting along better. And that's the evolutionary curve that I see.
Amen. Exactly what I was hoping for to hear, what I was trying to maintain. You have the experiments, you have the basis. You have the theory and the basis for showing what it is. It's tremendously valuable. Also, because
we have to manifest it now. I think that's the thing. It's like we all know a lot. And there's a lot of people that are listening to this conversation now, Ervin, that are very conscious people. They wouldn't be following your work if they weren't. They're very conscious people, and they're doing a great service to the world by being on the planet and putting that energy out, putting that into the energetic field.
I agree.
But for each and every one of us, we have to take the next steps. We have to be able to push past our normal consciousness thresholds and put more meaningfulness into the work that we do. And as before our recording started, Alice and I were talking and we were talking about some of the limitations that I've had to have in my life relative to coronavirus, and some of the challenges that's created for me in my internal attitudes. But that's a perfect example of work I needed to do on myself, of changes that I needed to make, that I needed to be more meaningful in accepting, more meaningful in taking care of the whole and not just myself. Thinking that I was already doing great at that, but then being able to see deeper that, yes, I was doing fine, but there was more to go. And then to try to be willing to step up and say, okay, I'll make those changes. And it's that next step.
Your work is crucial because you are providing legitimacy, credibility for the changes we need to make. You're showing that this actually can be expressed in quote unquote scientific terms, So this credibility is essential. I'm reminded of the old saying that we believe what we believe, what we act, or we recognize what we believe in, but we don't recognize what we don't believe in. If you don't believe it, you don't see it. And you show something that is more beyond the belief question. You showed, here it is. We have actually a valid indication of it, whether you believe it or not, in a sense.
So the South was a bridge. That's right.
This movement to the next step has to be credibilized or legitimated in a way. And I think you're providing that, and it's a unique service. I'm delighted and honored to have this exchange with you, because you are providing the food, the substance, and the credibility for the next step that we all know we have to create a world in which we can live together on this planet, which you don't have as yet.
That's right.
Perhaps moving.
And I think heart plays a big role. I think heart, the manifestation of a new version of heart. Heart's been around for thousands of years, but for us to take that evolution, everything's evolving, including heart. So to take the next evolutionary step of heart is really one of the imperatives of these times. It's not just a nice thing to do. It's not a heart math thing. It's like bigger than all of that, way bigger. It's part of the evolutionary imperative of the times, is to manifest more of the intelligence of the heart. The science is a bridge. The science allows us to explain it in ways that creates more acceptance.
Exactly.
One of the ways I've described our science is that our science gives the mind the security that it needs to go ahead and believe in the heart, to surrender itself to heart.
And not
because it's satisfied now. The mind is satisfied, and okay, now I'll listen, right? And so it does that.
Because
May I ask a question?
Old paradigm, in a way, is the heart is a pump. It pumps blood, and that's all it does. And spirituality is all just imagination, So only the brain works, and the heart has no other role than just keeping the blood circulating. And what we perceive is what's real, and what we don't perceive doesn't exist. I mean, all these old paradigm ideas need to be overcome. And the heart math work that you are doing with your colleagues is helping us to do that. So I would like to cite, more extensively, but the latest thing you are doing, So I would like to invite you to give me the material that I can use, I can refer to, because what you're doing is absolutely crucial. We have to take the next step, and the next step goes through the heart. It starts with the heart, and you are showing that.
Well, I'd be happy to do that and give you everything I can give you. Again, honor you very much for, wow. Like I said, before you came on, Irvin, I said, I don't know why he'd want to talk to me, because you've been around a long time and done such amazing work and have been a pioneer, a true pioneer. And I think HeartMath's a pioneer too, but you've been a real pioneer, a person that stepped up to the forefront of this so many years ago and have served humanity in a unique way. And it's your service to humanity that is the most important thing that I can honor about you, is that you've done this as a way to try to help. And you've done a great job with it. I'll give you whatever you want.
Thank you, Howard. I'll pick you up on that. I consider myself just a channel, something that I can bring to manifestation, to consciousness, something which is really there in us. And this idea of being part of a loving universe and belonging a oneness universe, that is, you have to move from the level of pure imagination down to the level of concreteness. That is the kind of universe we live in. It's a coherent universe. I think Einstein said that the most amazing thing about this universe is how coherent it is. And if you can show the coherence of the heart and the heart, brain and body coherence, that's just another enormous step forward to showing what is really true. We are people who can live together, who can, as Allison would say, humankind could be human kindness. And we need that very much. And you're helping us to believe in that.
A lot of mainstream society can accept heart better because of stuff like HeartMath science, right? The mainstream.
That's right.
We've done well in those areas. A lot of the training that's going on right now as we speak is happening in places like hospitals, police forces, some very mainstream societal cornerstones that need a little heart right now, So we do that kind of work, but we wouldn't be able to do that if we were just another philosophical heart system, that was born out of California, right? It would be reaching a certain audience and reaching it well, but it wouldn't be reaching those kind of people who are they're not predisposed. That's not what they're supposed to do. It's not why they're here. They do something different, right? But everybody needs a little heart right now. Allison, you got a question?
Yes, I do. It's a little bit left of center, but I think it's worth asking because we are talking about coherence and harmony, and not just our species amongst our own, but the fact that we're all sentient beings here living on a tiny spit of homeland, hurtling through a universe. Is it possible that the heart sensor, I don't know if you're working on this, can show the relationship, the pain, if you will, that other beings, that trees can feel when, for example, an innocent child carves a heart into the bark of a tree. The tree is alive. The tree, that would be almost like the skin of a human body. And I'm just wondering if the heart sensor can be applied to other species, other beings, so that humans can actually see and vivify the interaction and how we're affecting each other. What I think of is Masaru Emoto and his work with water and the water crystals, and how that was astonishing when people started to see that water reacts to our emotions, positive or negative. This was a stunning revelation. And I'm thinking how HeartMath might be veering in that direction with other sentient beings, and for children to learn this as we're growing a new paradigm.
Stay tuned.
Oh boy. Really?
The research that's going on today at HeartMath, and let me just qualify again for anybody listening that I'm not a trained scientist. I'm one of the people that has been here as helped Dr. Children found HeartMath since its inception, and I do a lot of different things here, including have a more of a public figure role. But there are scientists that work at HeartMath that do this type of science. I want to give them credit for it. Basically, I've been characterized as things like a scientifically informed comedian, or a hillbilly with an expanded vocabulary. I mean, the kind of things they say about me, But the research going on here at HeartMath today is about looking at the energetic connectivity between all living systems. People, plants, the earth itself, off planet. It's like, with a hypothesis that we all live in this vast web of energetic connections between all living systems on this planet and beyond, and proving that out more. So, for example, research is going on now, and we're developing technology to measure the synchronization between two people, or in a small group, to measure what's happening in their heart rhythms in real time when they're in an interactive phase. And I've been experiments already with rudimentary versions of this technology, where you have a small group trying to solve a problem, and you can monitor and see the collective heart rhythm changes that are occurring in that, So we're working on that type of technology. Also, you mentioned trees. Now, the HeartMath Institute, first of all, there are two organizations at HeartMath. HeartMath Institute is our nonprofit where the science is actually done. And they also work in fields like education and first responders, things like that. And then on the other side, there's HeartMath Incorporated, which is the for-profit company that disseminates all of this pretty much and does all the technology development and all that. And I'm on the HeartMath Incorporated side, right? But we're two organizations, one mission, right? But it gives us flexibility to go in through different doors, right? So the HeartMath Institute has a project now where they're measuring the electrical emanations from trees. And they've developed sensors that are measuring and can monitor changes in the electrical potentials produced by trees. And they're building these sensors, and they have a number of them now, like a lot of them. But where they're trying to go with this is that where everybody can have one of these to put on their tree. It becomes a citizen science project to feed information back, because what they're already seeing and finding is that trees produce electricity, a lot of it. That electrical output changes relative to external conditions. It may be because of solar radiation. It may be because of geological changes. They're also seeing that the trees do look as if they communicate together with each other. In other words, they're proving out that this is not only happening between people, that it's happening throughout nature. So animals, plants, the actual geophysical planet itself are all producing energy fields. And so the research inquiry today at HeartMath is not just on heart-brain-body communication. It's on energetic connectivity of how this plays out in terms of the connections between all of us, with the ultimate goal, again, of proving out the need to learn to get along better.
Because it's real. If you're connected to each other, you can show them. Yeah. They will understand it, that it's in our interest to have the connection, in our interest to be coherent with each other and with nature, and to show that black and white, matter-of-fact way. It's a tremendously great service. I feel that the idea, the Japanese idea, for example, forest bathing, it does good to people. People have been shown, psychotherapists and also doctors, that it actually has a positive health effect. My youngest son, Alexander, runs every day, half an hour barefoot in the forest. Absolutely insists on that. It feels different doing it barefoot rather than doing it in a shoe, so he wouldn't wear a shoe. This sense of connection that we have, if we can really reinforce it by showing that it's not imagination, not only imagination, it's also real. That's a great service.
Exactly. And as we prove it, it makes us, again, you mentioned just a second ago, Ervin, it makes us more aware of why we need to do it, right? Because we are connected, we are impacting each other, we are influencing one another. And it brings us into an awareness that leads to the next level of self-responsibility, to recognize, the question that I often ask is, what am I feeding the field? What are my inner attitudes right now? How is that impacting everything else? If I'm choosing to not be happy about something or to be upset about something, I'm feeding the field with that, right? And that's not only affecting me, but in some unseen ways, it's affecting everything else, right? So it puts me in a position of being more responsible of what I'm feeding the field. Yeah. And the science is going to help with that. Ervin's exactly right. As we begin to show more of this and it will give people a grounded understanding of the practicalness of it. See, right now we can attract a lot of people with something like the tree research because people getting glamored by that. Oh, wow, look, they're measuring trees, and I love trees. And so they'll get, it attracts a lot of people. The bigger question, though, is once they're attracted, where do they go from there? Is it just information? Is it just something that stimulates them that they know now that trees produce electricity? Or does it take them to a deeper understanding of the need to manifest more heart in their life and take them to another level of a feeling of being a conscious co-creator with a responsibility to make the world a better place? That's where it ultimately has to go. The attraction's one level. Where it takes people is the most important part, I think.
Well, that's
Exactly.
what we were
Well, what
saying about
helps
the old
is-
paradigm of separateness and overdone individuality, and then the new paradigm
That's right.
of connection and belonging. And this we have to show. This we have now the proof for that. We really belong together. Oneness is not just a word. It's something that can be shown because we are part of that field. We've been saying that, I've been saying that for quite some time, but now the idea of this universal field into which we can switch into is becoming more widely accepted. And your Hartmass work is doing a tremendous job in helping that recognition come along, that we are indeed part of a universal field. And when we are together, we can advance the field. When we are breaking off, then we become a kind of a cancer, which just ruins and damages the field. So the way forward is this way. And you can show it, anybody doubts it, look at the data, it's there. So it's a wonderful service, as I said. Great, the ideas are there, the ideas you're representing. And you're also going beyond, you're showing the ideas are based on something very solid, scientific. And that is a unique job of the Hartmass Institute, a unique service.
So, Ervin, what's next for you? I know that you have your book coming out, and I'm going to just say up front to anybody watching now, I've gotten an advanced PDF of the book. It's a wonderful book, and I suggest that you read it. Ervin's saying some very important things in that book that I think we all need to hear.
I'd like you to say that so we can put it right into the book. I would love to hear words from you on that. But what?
No problem.
We are banking on an interesting date. Maybe it's just numerology, I don't know. But there is 2202, the 22nd of February 2022. All these twos,
Right.
zeros, and we are going to do an Upshift festival. And I would like to heartily invite you to that and your colleagues to the Upshift Festival. It'll be a full day event.
I'd be honored.
I'd like you to say these things there because I think they're absolutely essential.
Good. I want to show you something real quick. This is something I don't do often, but I have in front of me at my desk, I have little things that I've picked up along the way. And sometimes this one is the most meaningful to me that I'll show now. And it's a simple one, but I'll tell you why it's meaningful. I spoke I think I saw from my Facebook memories, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, I spoke in Italy. I was in San Marino, and a nice big audience and all that. And I put my heart out to those people. And afterwards, there was the thing where people taking their pictures with you, things like that. And a family walked up to me, and they spoke no English at all. And they just stood there looking at me and no English at all. And all of a sudden, this little boy stepped up and handed me that. Means he got it. Whatever the translation or whatever it was, or whatever he was there with his parents, that little boy walked up and he handed me this. And I realized in that moment, that's why this is important. This is why I do what I do. If that child beyond language had been touched in some way, then that makes this work meaningful. So all the grandiose stuff we can do, it finally comes down to that to me. How do we help people? And how do we...
For those people, just to say, because you just held up a beautiful, simple red heart, and because this is a podcast, in case we're not videotaping this portion of the show, I want people to know that Howard Martin just held up a beautiful red part.
Little red paper made out of paper that this little boy made while I was talking.
Made out of love, paper and
you-
lots of love. I
a
think.
little simple paper heart. It could mean nothing in some context, or very little in some context. But to me, it had meaning because of where it came from and the conditions in which I received it. So, in other words, the energy in this little heart is beyond logical linear intelligence, right? It comes from something larger in experience that happened.
Well, it's something that we forgot. We don't recall. It's something that
I want to add something.
Experience comes in. But we thought of this, we knew this, but we've forgotten it. And now we can remember. Because you are underscoring it. You are showing that it's real. I mean, that's tremendous.
That's right. Well,
I wanted to say one thing, Howard, by the way, because you made a point before about the trees and sort of the flash, the pizzazz right now that the tree evokes in people. But to take it to a next step is that people might understand through this pizzazz phase that you're demonstrating with trees being alive, that next phase is for people to understand compassion and empathy and the ability to feel vis-a-vis other beings than themselves.
my apologies. Let me get this phone off.
That's all right.
There we go. Ervin had one too, so it's okay. Yeah, Ervin had a call. I had a call. So,
maybe energy is calling to say it's sending us love. The field is calling to share love. I just wanted to say that. I think that empathy and compassion can be gleaned from the phase that you're doing now, demonstrating how trees are able to sense and feel. Maybe that's right. A stepping stone for humans to be able to feel. I think we have fed the field a marvelous, loving experience today, and it has fed us. I would like to ask if there's any concluding statements that either of you want to share or ask each other, or.
I'm bowled over. I'm bowled over, absolutely. I mean, this is a wonderful, wonderful conversation that can help us to take the next step. And I hope.
Well, all I want to say is that I'm glad we had the chance to do this together. It exceeded my expectations as well. Having, let's call it, people say followed Irving's work or read things that Irving had written, etc. But then to experience the man like this exceeded my expectations tremendously. And I will do what I can to serve you, Irvin, to help you along the way if I can. Not that you need it, but I'll be glad to be there. If you want me to be on your upcoming program, I'll be happy to do that as well. Hold on just 1 second. Just a little pause in the heart as the noise went by my window. But yeah, I've enjoyed this tremendously. I have a chance, and I hope that someday, not too far down the road, once we get to a place where travel is more viable, that we can be together in person, that we can meet one another. I would like that very much. Spend some time with you. That would be an honor.
Establish a headquarters in the city of Trieste, which is a very sort of international located city.
Where is it?
Trieste in northern Italy, northeastern Italy, on the border to Austria and Croatia.
Oh, Trieste. Yeah, Trieste. I know. Yeah.
And that's where we're going to be, and we'd like to have actual face-to-face meetings as soon as travel becomes more possible.
That would be exciting for me. It gives me something to look forward to. Thinking about it now. Yes. I would love to do that. So I wish you all both the very best. If I can do more with you when your book's coming out and you have your festival, let me know. I'll be happy to participate in that. And I will loop back around with Allison and Nora and your team there and find out what would be best for me to send you that might be of interest to you.
Please. I'll send you the manuscript as it stands now, highlighting the areas where I'm already referring to HeartMath Institute, but I'd like to do that more in depth. And so I'm counting on your material.
Certainly will.
Okay, great.
What a joy.
Thanks very much. It's dinner time over here.
Thank you, Ervin.
Morning your time.
Have a wonderful night, my friend. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Howard.
Thank you both.
Bye-bye.
We could catch up.
Thank you both.
Hi, Ken D. Foster here. You know, it only takes one download, one spark, one idea to transform our lives in a very positive way. I know some of you have had profound ideas and you've acted on them. And as a result, you've changed. Maybe the action steps weren't that easy, but you didn't care because your purpose was so strong. Well, I'm hoping that you're getting some of those downloads with these conversations so that you can be inspired to move the mountains and the challenges in your own life and to be able to bridge the gap from where you are to where you want to be by allowing yourself to up level and upshift your consciousness. That's why Dr. Ervin Laszlo has put this all together for us, is because he really is sincere in helping you upshift your consciousness. So here we go. We're going to go to the next conversation. I hope you enjoy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Upshift Conversations with Ervin Laszlo and Friends, a transformative series that brings together the brightest minds and thought leaders from around the world. So, please join us today for yet another inspiring journey as we delve into profound discussions with our esteemed guest, Gary Zukav. Gary is a master teacher and author of 4 consecutive New York Times bestsellers, including the world-famous Seat of the Soul book. He's dedicated to the unprecedented transformation in human consciousness, an entirely new threshold in the human experience. For years, Gary has conveyed the most complex insights in a language that everyone can understand. Over and over, he challenges us to see the depth of our potential in the world and act on that awareness. His gentle presence, humor, and wisdom have inspired millions to realize their soul's greatest potential. Welcome to the show, Gary. Thank you for being with us.
But by the way, before we actually start the podcast, I wanted to tell you, Ervin, I've had the most remarkable experience with Linda. She has never left. With Linda. I am still with her. And she is still with me. At first, it was so very painful, so excruciatingly painful. But I decided to not waste any of that pain because I know that everything that happens to me happens for my spiritual development. So I decided not to squander this pain, not to distract myself in any way. And 2 days later, amazing things began to happen to me. I realized, looking at some trees gently blowing in the breeze, that I don't have a reason for living anymore except to love people. And I might have said that before, but now it's so. It had never happened to me before. And things like that kept happening to me. And in the meantime, I was talking with Linda, but missing her. Now, over the last year and a half or a little more, her presence has become so much more palpable. I know that's strange to say about someone who doesn't have an incarnation anymore, but it seemed more substantial. And I take great comfort in her presence. Sometimes I still miss her physical presence, but we are co-creating. And I love this. So I wanted to share this with you in case that's meaningful to you.
Thank you, Gary. It's extremely, extremely meaningful. Indeed.
Well, after I realized that I don't have any reason for, pardon me, for living except to love people, about a week later, I suddenly woke up. I don't know how else to explain it, but we have told people, Linda and I, because we have non-physical teachers. I've consulted mine for 40 years, and I've come to trust them. That's why I tell all of the people at our events, I am not the author of these ideas. So don't take them as true because you hear them from me. But if I say anything that you resonate with, experiment with it in your life and see what it produces. And if you like it, experiment some more. That's what you have a life for, is to experiment. If you don't resonate with what I say, let it go. Don't try to wear a shoe that pinches. And then I suddenly woke up in what we call the Earth School, this domain of time and space and matter and duality. And it wasn't a thought, it wasn't a perception, it was an experience. I just woke up and I realized I'm in this thing we've been calling the Earth School. It's much larger than my tiny community in Oregon. It encompasses Mumbai and Shanghai and New York and Mexico City. That's the Earth School. It's huge. So I was surprised. I was hugely surprised. First, at how asleep everybody is in the world that I just woke up from. And then I was surprised at how asleep I was in the world that I just woke up from. And then the next day, I realized the world that I woke up from is exactly like the world that I woke up to. Exactly. And then the next day, I discovered that I am exactly the way I was before I woke up, except that I was awake. And I remembered this old Buddhist saying, before enlightenment, chopping wood, carrying water. After enlightenment, chopping wood, carrying water. Well, Ervin, I do not know what enlightenment is. I've never understood that word. But this before and after experience, I understand that now. It is before my path was creating authentic power, cultivating love, and challenging fear. After I woke up, my path is creating authentic power, cultivating love, and challenging fear. It's the same. I'm doing the same thing. And more has kept happening to me. We've been celebrating Linda's life in the Earth School, and we went to, after we made a video for her, we went to a restaurant here in Ashland. There were 20 of us. And the server came over to me and said, would you like this on one bill or on separate tabs? And I told her, put it on separate tabs. That's what I'd always done. I'd always been stingy with money, but I couldn't do that. I had to go after her and say, I've changed my mind. Put it all on one bill and give it to me. And Ervin, I wanted to. There were no agendas. It just felt good. I never had that experience. And the next morning, I realized something. It came gently, but with authority. I'm generous. These changes keep happening. And I love what I'm becoming. And the consciousness that I can't say I'm becoming because it's not mine anymore, is expanding in not in size, that's meaningless, but in terms of experiences. For example, I've discovered that in the old consciousness, not my new consciousness, but in the old consciousness that I wrote about in 1989, in that consciousness, there is a barrier inside us, between inside and outside. And that barrier is uncrossable. And that's why no one has ever been able to understand how inner transformation can affect outer change, outer transformation. But what I realize is that that barrier is not a part of the new consciousness. It doesn't exist. And when I saw that, when you see that, it's impossible to change the world without changing yourself, because there's no difference. You cannot change a world that's built on the understanding of power as manipulation and control by trying to manipulate and control it. You only add more to what it's already made of. To change it, you have to add something new, something different. And that is authentic power. And authentic power, at its core, in its simplicity, is love. That's where I feel we're all moving people. Neil, Deepak, Eckhart. I used to feel competitive. Now I feel that they're my dear colleagues because we're all helping move consciousness toward love. And so I support them as I've supported you since we first met. But I wanted to share these things with you because they are everything to me now. And Linda is part of this. Like Linda is we don't chat. We don't just have conversations. But sometimes I experience her. I was writing some words down late at night. I was up at 3 a.m. and I started to write words. And suddenly I was writing these words. You have not lost me! Exclamation mark. I am here with you now. Understand that. Accept that. Believe that. Act on that. Act with that. And then the word stopped. And later, I realized, like a week later, if our situations were reversed, if my soul were in non-physical reality and somehow I saw my beloved Linda suffering and grieving my loss, how could I communicate to her what I'm experiencing? And Ervin, I realized I would use the same words, the very same words. So I love sharing these things. And I want to share them with you because you knew Linda's incarnation. Carita knew Linda's incarnation. I love Linda's incarnation. When I see something, a picture of Linda, I love seeing it, but I know that's not Linda. Her incarnation is gone. It's ashes and dust now. But her voice, her energy, her love are real. And I also see something else clearly, that I'm not special in this. I've always known that. What I'm experiencing is what all of us, probably you are experiencing. I don't know. But all of us, and of us, I mean our entire human species, is moving in this direction. We're acquiring a new consciousness. And I feel that's what your life is devoted to, the new consciousness, a waking up. Masami calls it the divine spark. We call it aligning your personality with your soul. But I had no idea when I first started this journey that it would lead me here. I'm seeing things that I never dreamed of. For example, I know I was told that the universe is inside you. It's not outside you, Gary. It's inside you and there is no outside. You are a unique expression of the universe, and so is everyone. And I thought, I can't tell people that. It sounds so solipsistic and narcissistic, self-centered, little self-centered. But then I started to think, Linda and I were adopted into Lakota culture, an American Aboriginal Indian tribe. And the Lakota say the center of the universe is everywhere. And I thought, maybe that's the same thing that I've been told. But I still couldn't believe it. So I talked to a friend of mine who has been a clergyman for 70 years. He's 95 now. And I asked him, is there anything in Christian literature or theology that indicates that the universe is inside me? And he looked at me in a puzzled way for a moment, as though he couldn't quite understand why I was asking that. And then he said, "The kingdom of heaven is within."
Mm-hmm.
Ervin, it's been hiding in plain sight all this time. We are so much more than we thought we were. You might say that we are eternal joy. We are expansive. Our teachers told Linda and me, or now Linda's soul had gone home by then. But he said, "Gary, the most surprising thing about the universe is not how vast it is, but how intimate it is." And I've been absorbing these things. And I told him, "Oh, I'm going to absorb that. That's so profound." And he said, I don't know if it's a he, it's an impersonal energy dynamic. And he said, "You can't absorb it, Gary. You are it." And he told me, "You are your perceptions." So I share that now with people that I feel are open to it. You are your perceptions. They're not happening to you. You're not having them. You are them. And these are all new experiences, and I love sharing them. And I'm so grateful that you're open to hearing these things, because I know I don't know. But from the transformation in your behavior and focus and interest that I've seen, tells me that something huge has happened in you. And that, well, that's all I can say now. I can't say anything about what's happening in you, except that I'm very grateful to know you, and I love you and Karita, and I'm so happy you're in my life, our lives, Linda's and mine.
These are words that are equal to the deepest wisdom that we have ever had on this planet by human beings. This is eternal wisdom that we've always had, and hopefully will always have, because these are insights, realizations, recognitions of what is and what we are. We are this oneness. The universe is not outside, because there is no outside. The universe is all there is, and it's all inside. It's all one. It's all holographic, if you like. Every part of it is present everywhere else. This wisdom is to which we have to awaken. And it is an awakening, it is an upshift which is in progress. You are one of the most key, most important spokespersons to it, because you can conceptualize it. What you are saying is what many people, not many people, some advanced people have been feeling, but not everybody can put it into words. Your words, I know you're looking for it. Your words are the same words that are sometimes, in my lucky moments, are coming to me. The same insights. It all sounds not only familiar, it sounds like, of course, obvious. That's it. And sometimes I get this. And sometimes I've been able to write it down, very rarely, but it has happened. So it's a wonderful experience to have this. When we see an exchange, it's not an exchange because we're not exchanging each other's wisdom. We are stating it. We are reinforcing it. We are confirming it. We are one. And love is the motive force that creates the universe, that creates evolution in the universe. And it is creating this higher level of consciousness, which recognizes itself in all there is. It's a great, great adventure to live a conscious life in this universe. It's a great privilege. You have woken up to it. You are awakening to it. I allow myself to be awakened if it can happen to me. It can't force it, but you can allow it. And this kind of exchange, well, not exchange, as I said, as this kind of confirmations and conversations that you are having, reinforcing, reclaiming, and restoring the wisdom that has been put aside as mere spiritual speculation. Understand that it's the deepest level of reality, the physical reality, which is both spiritual reality and physical reality. There is no separate physical universe or mental universe. It's one total universe of which we are all part. It's a great privilege, as I said, to talk with you. Let's try to make this conversation and conversations like this sufficiently shared so people can also say, aha, yes, I have heard something like this. It takes somebody to have the courage to say it. You have that courage. Every once in a while, we bring up that courage to say so and also write so. But we need to devote more of our time, or devote our life, our remaining life on the physical incarnation of the earth, to bring forward this message, because it is the deepest truth beyond and behind the appearances. It's a privilege and it's a pleasure. Thank you, Gary, for sharing this. It's precious what you are saying.
Oh,
It's the most precious tool, wisdom, the gem that with which we can live. I sometimes talk these days about dancing with the planet, to be one with the planet, to go together with it, to feel one with it. Like when you dance, a good dance, you feel your partner becomes you, and you become the partner. And dancing with the planet is the same as dancing with the universe, because the planet is a part, essential part, the one universe, of which the planet is one manifestation. And we on the planet are further manifestations. We live on this planet. We can dance with it. We can dance with each other. And we can reach that level of wisdom that very few people have reached in the past. The great Buddhas, the great Ayurvedic saints, and so on. But I think the time has come for more and more people wake up. You show the way, Gary. Let's try to do it together, follow it, and share it. That is our mission. That is our destiny. Thank you for being with us. Thank you again, Gary. It's a great privilege.
oh, oh, Ervin, I don't have any words. I'm so grateful to be with you. I'm so grateful.
Just seeing you, just looking at you, I can feel it. I can feel it. Somehow what you're expressing is what is you, and what is you is what is the world. It is also Linda. Together is all of us.
Yes, yes, I was. And I thank you, because I use my courage to share this with you. I even said at the beginning, before we start to, start our process, I want to share something, because until now, it has still taken me courage to share this. And I need to be aware. It's not this, it's to share. And
This is, we are here to share it because we are an expression of love. And when we share it, we help others to love. The others who are not others, they're also us. And together we can deepen this love.
yes,
And that is, I think, our sacred mission on this universe.
it's a
to love.
wonderful compliment. Sorry.
I said what I wanted to say. I want to say more. Silence is the most important. I think we can feel it. What you have been saying resonates in me, it resonates very deeply. I'll be living with it. I want to express it whenever occasion arises. But the important thing is to feel it. Because if I feel it, others around me feel it. You will feel it too. When you feel, I sense, I resonate with, I feel it too. We need that courage to express it, to live it. You have that courage. Congratulations, bravo, that's my greatest admiration. You have this courage to know that you are the universe. Thank you for coming to talk with me.
Oh, it's a joy, Ervin. It's a joy. It's a joy. We are joy. I am joy. I have the same issue with words. They don't work anymore. And my intellect doesn't work at all. It just stopped. It did stop working. I had to stop trying to use it because it won't work. Oh, well, then
I just want to come in here. Thank you, Gary. It's just so beautiful. I love, listening to you. And as Ervin said, it does take courage, but because you found that courage, you're able to show it to other people and inspire others. And I think that's the most important thing, to show your own vulnerability and to be able to show how to get sort of not over it, but how to use it as a positive thing. And that is something that if you share it, I think it multiplies, and a lot of people have a more deeper connection with themselves because of what you are expressing.
Nora, exactly right. I want to say that just this opportunity before we close to thank you, Nora, for hosting this, and for arranging similar conversations in the recent past and in the next future again, I hope. I think these are the sharings, I say not exchanging, these are the sharings that we need. And thank you for helping with that. I wish you good morning, Gary, and have a wonderful day. And know that your day doesn't end. It will be with you all along.
good morning to you, Ervin. It's a joy. It's a joy. And whatever we can share together, please let me know how I can support. Support.
You are supporting the truth and the seeker of that, of the wisdom. So you are supporting me, and you support this wisdom that you are expressing. That is your job, not me or you. The job is to express and share this deepest recognition that is surfacing in you. That is a privilege to be part of. Thank you for the courage. Thank you for talking with me. We'll continue our sharings in various ways, physical and non-physical. But this physical way, I think, is very valuable because it's easily accessible to most other people. They might be surprised at what we're expressing, but I think several of them will say, yes, I knew it. I just needed to hear it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Gary, do you have any other sharings that you would like to express here? I just want to share that I love the fact that you are both wearing the similar jackets, this jean jacket. I love it. This was not coordinated by any way, shape, or form. It just happened, and it's beautiful.
Well, I think we close it down. We don't want to take all this time, but it stays with us. The experience that we have had is an ongoing one. So let's cultivate it, let's nurture it, let's live with it. Thanks, Gary, again, from all my heart to have come and taken this time to become what you really are, an exponent of the greatest wisdom on earth.
I'm so happy to be with you, Ervin. Although it's more, I suppose, accurate as these words become more and more clumsy to say, I'm happy. To say happy. Grateful.
I am grateful to you, brother.
Wow, what a day filled with inspiration and wisdom and transformational principles and actionable items to help you to grow your life, grow your family's life, change your consciousness, change the thinking, not of our communities, of your family, of the world. It was powerful. I hope you really enjoyed the summit today. This is day 1. We've got day 2, 3, and 4 coming up. And you won't want to miss any of those days because each speaker builds upon the next. It's designed that way. Dr. Laszlo has brought the best of the best for his mission. He's got a sacred mission to upshift consciousness. He's not talking about his consciousness. He's talking about our consciousness, the world's consciousness. To meet the needs of the world in today's world, we have to shift, right? It's preeminent. We have to do it. If we don't, chances of us surviving are very slim. So that's what the conversations, of course, are all about, what you heard today. So if you, by the way, are anybody that kind of like me, that you got a busy schedule and sometimes the summit doesn't fit into your schedule, we have made available the summit videos for you to purchase and watch at your own leisure. Of course, pass them on to family and friends, and you'll have them for your access for life for you. And also, we have the Upshift conversations. So there's 17 videos in the summit, and there's 52 videos in the Upshift conversations. Again, each one builds upon the one before and helps you to change, grow, develop. Imagine one video a week. That's all you have to do. One video a week for 52 weeks. You watch it and you apply the principles. Imagine how your life would be in 1 year from now. Well, I can imagine for you. It's going to be filled with more joy, more love, more happiness, more abundance. And you'll also be a greater part of the solution in this world as opposed to being part of the problem. So I hope you'll check that out. Look below at the link here. You can find a link that'll take you over to the page that you can learn all the details about the Upshift Summit purchase for the videos and also the Upshift Conversations purchase for all 52 conversations. All righty. I can hardly wait until tomorrow. I hope you're feeling the same way. And I look forward to seeing you then. Take care.